Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Sunday morning after the fights. How are you? How are you? I mean, we had some cool fights last night. I got some cool people coming in here today. We're gonna chop them up. We're gonna talk about them. You know, we're Sunday morning on the Mount Hope Bay. Bruce goes over here with you, man. Digging on life, digging on the day. Thanking God for every second. Enjoying my TOKER too, man. Listen to a little Charlie Parker from 1953 in the background there, man. Getting it all good, man. Let's see who came in today, man. Let's see who came in. Hey, the gang is all here, man. I got my brother Mad Chad over here from the wilds of Portland, Maine. I got George JAKOVIC over here, bro. George JAKOVIC, former HBO exec, man. This man knows his boxing, bro. And we're gonna chop it up, man. I hope the music's not too loud for you guys. Everything good out there?
Nice and mellow on a Sunday.
Mad Chad, you good, my brother?
Hey, Bruce. Thankful to be here, man. George, good to see you, man. That was a great stream you and Bruce had that night. I was a little off, but I tuned in, and that was some great stuff, George. I see your passion, your love, and I'm honored to be here with Mr. Bruce Goes and Mr. George. Honestly, fellas, God bless. God bless.
I feel the same way. It's great being here with you guys.
Well, you know the pleasure's all mine, man. You know when it comes to this, and I'm just glad I got some people who love boxing. They're articulate, they're sharp. I hope they're good and stoned this morning, because man, it's a great day. And last night, what happened, man? What happened last night? Gary Russell Jr. We've been waiting 2 years to see the WBC featherweight champion of the world. I mean, one of the most prestigious titles. When I go back, I can remember Danny Little Red Lopez defending this title 3 times a year on free television. Salvador Sanchez, probably one of the greatest featherweights of all time, passed away at 23, and he's got a legacy. And now we're looking at Gary Russell Jr., a great fighter. I mean, he's put on some tremendous shows, but we don't see him that often. And then when we saw him last night, I mean, I don't know if it was Father Time that caught him. I don't know if it was the inactivity, the injury. I know there's a lot of bullshit going on with his family. Man, God bless him. His father just had his leg amputated. So much internal conflicts going on. And then he didn't have a proper training camp, from what I understand. He had to run his own training camp. So I don't know, man. I just thought the real Gary Russell didn't show up last night. I don't know if he's going to show up again, man. And I just thought Magsayo he was in the right place at the right time. He's not a world-class beater. But man, I thought he won that fight clearly last night. I can't see how people can give that fight to Gary Russell, bro. What's your opinion on that? I'll start with you first, George, and then we'll hit my brother Mad Chad.
Gary Russell, like you said, the guy's got immense talent. Like, he is a great fighter. He's got so much skill, but he doesn't. I don't think even Gary Russell fans feel passionate about him. It's hard to feel passionate about a guy who fights once a year, if that. It's hard to get passion for a fighter like that. I thought he lost the fight. I didn't think it was a great fight. I agreed with a lot of what Gary Russell said. He said, I thought I outboxed him. I had the better skill. He did outbox him, and he did have better skill at points. But now, I don't mean to get all Max Kellerman. You know how Max Kellerman likes to drop something from 1928 into a gut. There's a legend that Willie Pep fought a guy named Jackie Graves, and he won a round without throwing a punch. That might be a myth. That might be true. I don't know. But Willie Pep did win the fight on a knockout. He punched the guy at some point, and he knocked Jackie Graves out. You can't win a fight by not throwing punches. I didn't think Magsayo looked particularly great. He fought a one-arm fighter. It wasn't his fault. I don't know how long he's going to hold on to that belt. But Gary Russell came into the fight. He didn't make weight the first time. I know he's got a lot of issues, and I know fighters don't go into fights 100%, but he told the world he was going into the fight with an injury. He told the world. So you're already giving an excuse going in. He got punched in that shoulder, which is what injured it. Why would he go into the fight with a bad shoulder? It just, this isn't a tough guy competition. He was injured, and it was damaged more in the fight, and he couldn't throw punches. He couldn't throw punches. I understand he hasn't fought in 2 years, and this is how they earn a living, by fighting. I think it was a big mistake to go into that fight injured like that. But again, he told the world that, hey, look, I'm going into the fight injured. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then we found out after. Now, where does he go? If I'm Magsayo, I probably won't give him a rematch unless it's big money, and it probably won't be big money because a two-handed Gary Russell would beat him. I just don't know where he goes now.
What do you say, Matt Chad?
Well, after you two, I mean, what is there to say? I mean, everything there, the inactivity. I mean, talking about a fighter to all the skill in the world, talent, overflow, all the tools. I mean, but, hasn't fought in 2 years. Then you go with all the personal issues. A lot of that, people say, mental to physical is 4:1. And you see that with distractions. I think you see a lot of parallels with the T.O. George Kambosos fight where, they were both supposed to win. They're both the better fighter, but they both didn't show up. They both had the distractions, and they both had injuries, I do believe. And, Gary Russell lost that fight. Like you say, he was the better boxer. He was the more skilled boxer. He almost beat him with one freaking arm, honestly. There was a lot of swing rounds there, to be honest. Magsayo was missing. Yes, I see it. But I don't see how, if they would have gave the fight to Russell, that would have been a robbery. That would have been a robbery because Russell was not himself. That was a one-armed man that fought negative most of the fight. He had to, that is his style, but he was fighting to survive because he couldn't throw. And that's a tough nut to crack when you have a skilled fighter like Gary Russell in that mode. He wasn't on the aggressive. He couldn't throw combinations. He had that straight down the middle that he kept hitting them all night. Like Magsayo ain't going to want the rematch because he knows, his team knows, if they're to fight again and Russell is right, Russell boxes this kid's ears off. And but you guys as takers right on. It wasn't even that entertaining of a fight, but it was thrilling, so to speak. It was like very intriguing, I thought. And the fight before that, just to carry on here with the Matias guy, I thought he's very flawed. We know the kid brings all the excitement, the entertainment, but I see him at a world level, him getting really pieced up. It'll probably be an entertaining fight while it lasts. But Matias, he didn't impress me. I didn't really see any impressive, overwhelming performances last night.
Agreed.
I didn't either. Hey, let me shout out to people that came in here today, man, on a Sunday morning, man. Iceman, first guy in here, man. Thank you for coming in, bro. Always around, always showing love. Fistiana, man. Fistiana, you really humble me. You show up to my shows, man. We talk jazz. We talked about your dad bass playing, man. I mean, damn. Thank you for coming in, man. Thank you for coming in. LT, my brother. LT's always showing love, always supporting the channel, man. Great man to have out there. And G5, my brother, man. Me and G5, I think if we got a pound of weed and we sat down, man, I think we'd probably finish it all off. We'd give each other a couple of fist bumps, and I'd say, I'll see you again next year at the next smoke-a-thon. But shout out to my brother G5, man. And Kui, man, always showing love. Thank you, Kui, man. So George, Kui signed up. She subbed to your show. She had a great show the other night, shouting you out, man.
I love her show. Yeah, I love it.
An asset to the boxing community.
Heavy hitters, Bruce, in here. Heavy hitters.
Always, man. Thomas Jones, my brother, Thomas Jones. And let's get back to fights again, because we always get good positive boxing minds in here, man. We get people who know what's happening, and I'm so fortunate, man. I got Mad Chad on the panel. I got George JAKOVIC, bro. On a Sunday morning, my house is empty. It's me and the dog. He's laying on the chair over there. He doesn't give a shit what's going on. My wife went to visit her mother in the nursing home, and it's like it was last night for the fights. I was here by myself. It's the way I like it. I can turn the volume off. I don't have any distractions. And last night, to me, it was a strange night of boxing. We all wanted to see the return of Gary Russell, and the thing about it was everybody was saying, what's he going to look like when he comes back? That's the sad part about today's fighters. It's not. Hey man, they're gonna run him right over. Gary Russell is such a sharp fighter. I mean, look what he did to Kiko Martinez, who went on to win a world title. I mean, the man is at. I don't care if he's 33 years old. He's the best featherweight out there. And last night he came in. First of all, he missed weight twice. Not a good sign for a professional like that. And then he was also arguing with his corner at the weigh-in. I just saw a lot of negativity. He just didn't seem like he didn't seem like he was sharp and ready for the fight. It seemed like he was more or less handling the business side of it, handling his family, the personal side of it, and then having to take care of himself, get himself in condition, and get that mindset. I didn't see any encouragement in his corner. Man, where I saw Freddie Roach was, Parkinson's and all. He's a cool dude in that corner. He can motivate his fighters, and I thought the decision was obvious. After the third round, after Gary Russell hurt that left shoulder, he was a one-armed fighter. What did he throw? 3 jabs after that fight? And the jab, that's probably the most important weapon in boxing. I mean, damn.
That's his weapon.
Absolutely. I mean, he should have just. I don't know if that shoulder was bad, but the elbow. I mean, flick the jab out. Just show him that it's there. Keep him at bay, because that left hand. Every time he landed that left hand, it was boom, and the right side of Magsayo's face, bro. You could tell he was he was bopped around. He knew that left hand was hitting him, but the right hand, it was non-existent. And we've seen fighters win a fight with just a jab. Damn, Michael Spinks beat Dwight Mohamed Qawi for the light heavyweight title with just a jab. So that's how important that punch is. And it was non-existent last night. Man, it was almost anticlimactic. Once he disclosed that shoulder was shot, and the doctor came in, and his brothers was, oh no, there's nothing wrong with that shoulder. I mean, we're not idiots. We've only been to 1 million fights before. I mean, bro, it was really like I said, anticlimactic. Gary Russell wasn't going to get knocked out, because he was a defensive whiz. Even with that one hand, he was swaying. He was moving that head. He had head movement, feet movement, but without that right hand, he was just so beatable. Yeah. And he wasn't beaten by a great fighter either. Where's Magsayo going to go from here? I mean, he sounded great. He sounded like Manny at the interview. He sounded very humble.
It's incredible that Freddie Roach has another Filipino champion. That's a nice storyline. But again, like you said, with Gary Russell, there were moments in that fight. It was pretty riveting to watch him winning rounds with one hand, and it was a heroic performance in a lot of ways, because when you have one arm in a fight against anyone, you're at a disadvantage. And the fact that he won some rounds with one arm, but he didn't win the fight. He didn't win the fight. I saw a Gary Russell interview this morning. It was a post-fight. He thinks he won the fight 10-2, 9-3. I mean, how many fighters think they won the fight when they clearly lost? I think Gary Russell remembers there were points he probably felt like, I can do anything I want with this guy, but he had one arm. He had one arm, and he went into the fight with an injury. So, I hate to keep harping on that. I just really wonder where he's going to go. He couldn't get big fights before when he was healthy. I don't, Santa Cruz somehow is still a champion, even though Santa Cruz hasn't defended his title in how many years? But
and the last time we saw him in a ring, he was almost sent to heaven.
Right.
It was almost like the resurrection when he opened his eyes.
with this Gary Russell too, even leading up to the fight, he's talking about moving up to the next weight. He's talking about 3 fights. I'm thinking he ain't even really mentioning Magsayo. And I think he was definitely thinking he could go into this fight. I thought he looked at Magsayo's skill, because he ain't all that. I'm not taking nothing away from Mark Magsayo, but he ain't no fucking Manny Pacquiao, pardon my French. Right. He's a above average world champion, top 10 fucking featherweight, whatever. That's what he is. He fights a Navarrete or a killer, he's going to get annihilated. Yep. And, I think Russell thought, even injured, he can get by this kid. And he almost did, honestly. Like you said, it's a beautiful thing. It shows his heart, his skill, his God-given ability to go in there with one arm. You know how hard that is to do against someone trying to kill you?
Absolutely.
And Magsayo was trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And he performed exceptionally well, honestly, to take away from what he performed. Absolutely. You could take away a lot of positives. And I think this might help him. Maybe he can take away something from this. Wow, if I'm right, how, maybe he will become more active. Maybe he can turn this into a positive. But last night, that was not the Gary Russell. I think all indications showed Magsayo was a live underdog. And, he did. He was in the right time at the right place at the right time, like Bruce said. And shout out to Freddie Roach for that. The coaching. The coaching. I like that coaching. And I thought, you kind of saw a Bush League type thing going on, where all the pressure was on Gary Russell, handling everything, like you say, at the weigh-in. It seemed like there was some negative vibes.
Yep.
Just was set up for failure, and I think we saw it. But shout out to both fighters. Like I say, it wasn't the best fight in the world. It wasn't even really a good fight.
I'll tell you one thing I noticed at the end of the fight. When they announced the decision, I saw a smile on Gary Russell's face, almost like a sigh of relief. He didn't hold that for long. Once he got the microphones in front of him, he won the fight and he changed it. But it's almost like, finally, I'm free. Because I don't know. I'm assuming there's been conflict between PBC and Gary Russell Jr. Otherwise, why wouldn't he be getting the fights? Why wouldn't we have a unification fight? The man's been a champion for over 6 years. I mean, come on, But it's kind of indicative of boxing, because I was looking at other title holders with long records now, and Bivol and Batuviev, exactly the same amount of time, 4 years and 2 months. Why haven't they fought each other? Why don't these fighters crave to unify their titles, to become undisputed? Because that's what it was all about back in the day. When you talk about featherweight now, you're going to say, Gary Russell, Mendoza, Leo Santa Cruz, and who knows who else, bro. It's just so much confusion. The people want to see unification fights. That's what they'll pay for. I don't know if they'll pay for it on pay-per-view anymore, because, man, that's just not even in my repertoire. I hear the Keith Thurman and Camboso fight. People are complaining about it, 89, 79, whatever it is, man. Don't you have a tablet? Don't you have a friend who knows how to stream a fight? Don't bitch about it. Just show these fighters we're not going to pay for that kind of garbage, man. You're not going to just shove us a bologna sandwich and tell us it's a filet mignon, and we're not going to give you a $50 bill for it. It's as simple as that. That's how I feel about pay-per-view. I just wanted to get that in there. Last night was Showtime, but I don't even have Showtime, man. I don't have cable. I go. Everything is over the internet. I got the fight with no problem. It came in perfectly. Anybody who's bitching about a pay-per-view now, look for some other cause.
Flag up. He flies the Jolly Roger flag right there in the bay. Bruce, what did you think? And Jack, what did you guys think about the Matthias fight?
Jack. Which one? The second fight, Matt Chad?
Yeah, the kid that God rest the Davinesian soul, but the hard-hitting Puerto Rican kid, brings the violence to the table. And, a lot of hype. The kid's got a lot of hype for the violence he brings to the ring. But I think, I saw a lot of flaws. I didn't see a world-class beater. I see a very entertaining Ted Cheeseman type fighter, to be honest.
He's an exciting fighter, but you're right. I think he's in a lot of trouble when he fights a world-class fighter. But they have to fight the fights. Maybe he Maybe he improves as he gets older. I don't know. He's definitely an exciting fighter, but he's going to be in some trouble, I feel, when he moves up against a higher quality of competition. Hey, you know what? And I don't mean to get into an MMA. I don't watch MMA. I'm not an MMA fan. But last night, after
it's okay, bro. It's okay.
I watched it.
I watched that heavyweight Nagano, whatever his name. And the only reason why I bring him up is there was a lot of talk about him going into boxing, and this guy is so strong and so powerful. This if you put an MMA guy in a boxing ring, he's going to lose. If you put a boxer in the octagon, he's going to lose. If this guy, Nagano, I'm probably saying his name wrong, if he gets into boxing, he will get annihilated and destroyed. I mean, you know, these guys think they can just jump into boxing and do it because he's a big, strong guy. I just had to get that out there because after the Russell fight, I turned that on and I didn't pay for it, but I turned it on, and I'm expecting to see, like, this guy was built up like some kind of a legend, some annihilator, some Clubber Lang fighter, and it was pretty bad. So I don't want to get into a MMA talk because I don't know MMA, but MMA guys, stick to MMA. Don't come into boxing.
See, I'm a newbie at MMA. I like combat sports, George and Mad Chad. And let me shout out my brother Jedi just stopped in here, Reanime Studios. My brother G5 Jeff TV, man. Con Shawnery, bro. George, you're attracting them over here, man. I guess honey attracts flies better than you know what over here. So, man, thanks for stopping in the building, bro.
Con Shawnery, I remember Con from the other night. He's a good guy.
All good boxing minds coming in here, man. You know, and I appreciate this, man. I appreciate you taking your Sunday morning off. But yeah, you know that I noticed that first fight too, and is that the fight that ended in a draw?
Which one?
The first one of the boxing match last night.
I didn't even see the first fight. Is
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the Showtime card. I remember the fight that was stopped that was stopped by the ring doctor.
Weird. Yeah. That was weird.
It was weird. See, I didn't see anybody interpreting in the corner. Nobody spoke English, and she looked at the fighter in the eye, and she moved her finger, and I don't know if she was saying, "Keep looking me in the eye," or she was actually saying, "Follow the finger," and she just kind of nope, he's not following my finger. Just told, it was a female referee too. Told her.
I did see that. I did see that stoppage.
Strange stoppage.
Bruce, can I hop on what JAKOVIC said?
Yeah, please do, man. Well, let me shout out to Tay coming in here, man. My brother Tyrone from TJ Sports. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in.
No, just mentioning what he just talked about, apples and oranges. I see that so well. Like if you took a Khabib, if you put Khabib in an alleyway fight with Tyson Fury, I got my money on Khabib. Just taking the big giant down, getting him in a fucking lock and breaking his leg or something.
Right.
But you put Julio Cesar Martinez, a little dude, in a boxing ring with Khabib, Julio Cesar Martinez will rip the shit out of Khabib. It's just like what Jack said. I call you Jack. Has anybody ever called you Jack, sir?
Yes. A lot of people call me. Yes, absolutely.
George, you know what I'm saying, George? Because it's Jack. Jack. I kind of, hey.
No. Jack is fine.
Multi-dimensional, and like I say, I'm so honored, George, honestly, kicking back all those shows that you produced, those HB. I mean, honestly, that was just part of my DNA. I'm just so honored to get your point of views here because you just love this sport of boxing. And that story, you sat 45 minutes alone with the late, with the just recently retired Manny Pacquiao. And I heard, just to sit there to have a meal with this man, that is something that's priceless. That's something that many people can't say has happened in their life. And shout out to you for that and all your experiences that you've had inside the ring and outside the ring, just following the sport. It was beautiful. You need to get back into it somehow because you're a big positive vibe for the sport that we all love.
That's what we're doing right now, Mad Chad.
Yes, we are. Shout out, Jack. Shout out, honestly. This is much
shout out
love.
to Derek Bailey. Derek Bailey stopped in the building, and Chen Smoke stopped in here. DP Rocker stopped in here, man. Great people stopping in. Thank you so much, man. We're here with my brother George JAKOVIC, my brother Mad Chad. We're talking some boxing, man. Any of you guys have any questions you want to ask George? George has been around, man. We were talking about the Gary Russell. I mean, that we don't want to get redundant, but we saw one of the longest reigning champion in boxing fight last night. He wasn't up to par. He couldn't keep off this young, hungry Filipino. And, we saw an upset, man. We saw another champion. People are saying finally that the title will get defended again. I don't know. I think there's so much business in boxing. I don't know why the title hasn't been defended. Someone told me there was a certain amount of money that had to be paid to Gary Russell to make a fight. So the fights, they didn't pan out financially. I don't know anything about the business of boxing. It's so far over my head, and it gets me sometimes. It gets me so so fed up with boxing that this is why I love having people in here who know a little bit about the back end, but they know more about the front end, the meat and potatoes, what we love. The best fighting the best, man. Anybody else just slipping here that I missed? George H, man. Salute to you, my brother. Salute to George H.
But anyway, man. Chad, I'm still in boxing. I've done work with Showtime and Fox, and just 2 years ago, I was doing a show on Devin Alexander. Devin Alexander fought a guy named Ivan Redcatch. Devin was being trained by Roy Jones. So I spent 3 or 4 days in Pensacola on Roy's farm. He's got 80 acres, and he's got a gym there. You can hear the chickens and the roosters in the gym. That's all you hear on his farm. So, I'm still in it. I got to hang out with Roy Jones and Devin Alexander for 3 or 4 days. And, around the farm. You brought up the Pacquiao thing. Honestly, I told Bruce this the other night. I grew up loving the sport, and I still feel like a little kid when I meet these fighters and I spend time with them and I get to tell stories. It's the coolest thing. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. I never stopped loving it, and even though it's a dirty, slimy sport, never stopped loving the sport, because the fighters are what I love, not the sport.
The fighters, absolutely. George, and you're loving it.
Remy's out there, Matt Chad. Just let me shout out my brother Remy, man. Thanks for coming in. He says, "Morning, Bruce, Mad Chad, and George." Salute to my brother Remy.
And Bruce, like, you guys are honestly, I feel like a third wheel here after that last show you guys had, man. I'll tell you, because you guys were just, Simon and Garfunkel there, honestly, Lennon and McCartney. I mean, this was good shit.
That's my new best friend. I met him 1 week ago.
No shit. I thought that was your younger son or brother or something. I mean, honestly, I'm like, who are these guys? Is he a Rhode Island cat? I mean, George, it's just beautiful to hang out. And Bruce is loving knowledge. Bruce was there with Hagler, sparring in the day, and Bruce was at the fights, and he just loves it. I went down and met Bruce personally, and he is what you see. This is an OG. I love this man to pieces. I learn something new from this man every time I talk to him. He's just a class act, and the love that he has for the sport of boxing is unparalleled. And George JAKOVIC, same with you. And like Bruce goes, what fighter does Bruce goes push? Bruce goes doesn't have a fighter he pushes. It might be Hagler or somebody. Larry Holmes. I know he has a soft spot for Larry.
I was like
Tim Witherspoon.
I was giddy.
But the fighters these days, you see a lot of people. You see so many.
I never meant to open this up and do interviews, bro. But I just wanted to have Mad Chad on here, and some of the cats in the chat room, talk about boxing, jazz, wrestling, health and nutrition, the good weed that I smoke, and then I get to meet some famous people, man. I was at a panel last week with George, and I said, damn, I did I checked him out, did a Google. I said, look at the shit this guy's been through. I said, wow. And we hooked up, and he came on the show. And man, we talked for 2 hours. We could have talked for another 10 hours. Yep. I didn't want it to get stale. I didn't want it to get redundant. He said, I'll come back again. And twice I sent him out. I threw a line out there. Both times he bit at it. And man, it's just so good to be hooked up with George, man. George, we're connected in here, and it's boxing. One love. It's one love. It doesn't matter what color we are, how much money we have, what car we drive, who we hang around with. We just love talking boxing, man. We saw fights last night. I went to bed. I didn't want to get online because it was after midnight, man. I like to get at least 4, 5, 6 hours sleep. and I just couldn't wait to come on and chop it up, man, because just that love for boxing and the platform that we have now where we can come and talk it up and share it with other people. And I'm just honored to have as many people come in here and listen to us. And man, I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm just happy, man. George, great to meet you, man. And you're such an outgoing guy. And Mad Chad, met him in person. He's my brother, bro. I mean, it crushed the legend out there. Everybody out there.
One day, but the passion, that's why the time goes fast. What do they say? time flies when you're having fun or something like that, whatever the
Yeah.
phrase is.
Yeah.
It does. It really does.
It's true.
We all have a passion for this, and we could talk about this for days and days. That's just how it is.
Fucking right, man. It's the beautifulest sport in the world because it's so, it's just so preparation. It takes so much that goes into even at the amateur level, all the sacrifice, dedication these warriors have to go through. And it's the loneliest sport. When you're winning, everybody's your buddy. But when you're at the decline, your legs are failing. Who the fuck's this guy? Yeah, you'll still get your local beer at your local tavern. But you go from first to worst in a snap of a finger in this sport. It's the loneliest sport in the world, and I just have so much love. Like before every single fight, I close my eyes, take my hat off, and I say a prayer. Let these fighters make it through safely. Let them just be good, and let the outcomes be what they are. Nothing shocks me in boxing anymore. No judges scoring, no ref throwing a towel out the ring, no bizarre, no one flying in with a parachute. I've seen it basically all, and I just love it. I can't get enough of it. Now, I can't wait for this Castano Charlo too. I'll tell you, I think that's going to be fight of the year because Castano ain't going to let this fight end, but go to the judges. He's going in Hagler style, and this is going to be a fucking war.
You know what? That fight, I was working for Fox, and I did a countdown show for that fight. So in a week, first I was in Castano's camp, then I was in Charlo's camp. And Castano at the time was training in Andy Ruiz's old gym. So I met him, and he's a great guy, so much skill. And then I went to Charlo's place. He's got this big mansion in Houston. But I got to hang out with both those guys, and the fight that they had, that was a hell of a fight. I mean, that first fight,
great fight. Great fight.
Castano really. People didn't know how good Castano is. That was
I did, George. I lost money on that fight. I mean, little T-Rex arm, big chin motherfucker from the slums of Argentina. This is a cocky, bad motherfucker that's willing to die. His pajamas aren't silky like Charlo. I think that was the big separation, and also, but go ahead, George. I'm sorry, but I'm a big Castano fan.
No, Castano is man. He's just. The dude is good, and he really opened a lot of people's eyes that didn't know. And I can't wait. That's they keep kicking dates out, and I see a different date every week. First it was going to be in Houston, then it was going to be in LA, and I don't know where it's going to be. I just want to see these guys fight because the first fight was great, and the second fight, I can't see it being any other fight but an exciting one. Like I can't wait. That's one of the fights that's on my list that I really can't wait to see. I just want them to announce a date. So hopefully it happens soon.
George, they do. I might try to get to that one, honestly, because I think it's guaranteed to see someone hitting the canvas because they both know. I just know Castano. He's a killer, and he's not going to let it go to the cards. I think he's going to control pace. He's going to explode more in bunches instead of, being the constant pressure. I think he might even fight off the back foot at times, but then he's just going to explode because he's not going to let it go to the judges. And this is a 50-50 fight. Just flip a coin, and that's what we all love, the best fight and the best, because these are the two best at 154. These are the two best fighters in the world at that weight class.
And they've already whetted our appetites with that first fight.
And it's undisputed.
Exactly. Let me shout out Nordic Warrior, man. My brother stopped in here. Who else came in here, man? Blood Boxing, my brother. Blood.
Blood. Heavy hitters.
I'm waiting for some solid diesel this afternoon. I got some great paper over here I'm waking up with, man. Salute to my brother, Blood Boxing. Hey, George, Blood's a good man, bro. Blood's a historian. He does documentaries, bro. Good guy for you to hook up with, man.
Yes, we have to. Yes.
Oh, absolutely, George. My favorite. This dude did a Sanchez Hagler. I mean, this dude is on fire with it. He just lets it all out there. He just knows his boxing. He loves these fighters, and you definitely need to pay attention to Blood. Retro sports and boxing. I mean, this dude is an OG. He's an older fellow. George, how old are you? What are you, in your 20s, late 20s?
No, I'm 49.
Fuck, you don't smoke cigarettes?
I don't.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, because I'm 52 and I'm a fucking mess. Honestly, I could pass as your dad. You're
Thanks,
looking
man.
healthy, George. Honestly, you're looking in
Yeah.
fighting fucking shape.
I
Hey,
appreciate that.
I don't hang around with guys who look healthy, bro. You know, man. Mad Chad, you know you're the fountain of youth over there, bro. Up in there, I don't know if you guys are drinking and smoking,
A
bro.
miracle. I'm a miracle.
Hey, it is. We are what we are, bro. If we can just pull it, just pull up, hook it up, and just jerk boxing like this. I mean, I'm serious, man. We have some of the finest people I know on YouTube coming in here to listen to us. You know, I mean, you can talk all the quality, all the quantity you want, but we got quality over here, bro. We got people who are listening, who can contribute. We got people who do what we do. People that I listen to, man. You guys kind of put me on a pedestal, bro. I'm actually a casual when it comes to the people who are
You're our elder, Bruce. You're our elder, OG.
yeah,
Honestly.
maybe in words, bro, but not
You're
in
not a
boxing knowledge,
casual.
bro.
You are not a casual.
I feel okay. With
Bruce
all
is
the
a
bullshit
casual.
going on today, bro,
He
with what's
called
going
himself
on
a
today,
casual.
I can't remember. I can't even tell you about the Chocolito and the Gonzalez fight. I'm not that into it. I didn't watch the earlier fights, and I know it's like one of the biggest fights on the horizon, and I'm going to get into it. But for some reason, it's boxing being so complicated.
Is Bruce freezing up, or is it just me? Is Bruce kind of freezing up a little?
Yes, he's free. You're freezing up a little, Bruce.
Bruce, you might want to leave and come back, because I think that happens with StreamYard sometimes, because he seems to be freezing up, George. And like I say, Bruce is always on point. He dots his I, crosses his T's, and but you're definitely freezing a little, Bruce.
All right, man. Let me see what's happening there.
But yeah, Mad Chat, I love this this platform, being able to see the people give the questions, and man, I love I can talk to anyone who's passionate about boxing. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to do.
George, it just covers everything. Like, I spent time in Indianapolis, you know what I mean? I'm from Maine. I grew up in Maine, spent my whole life here, but I spent 6 years in Indianapolis, and you could go anywhere. I went to a few gyms, was up in Gary, Indiana, and it's like, just bring up boxing, and it's just the OGs, the real people of the world, especially, I don't want to say this, but the lower income people you're around, the more they love boxing, honestly. And there's no bigger fan base than Mexicans, I swear to God, when I was in Indiana, when I would go there. Every single place, Mexican place you'd go, they had the fighters up on the wall. And wherever you went, I worked at a big supermarket. They just love boxing like no other people. I never lived in England, so I don't know about them or the Ukrainians. But here in North America, there is no question the most passionate fan base in the world is the Mexican fan base. That's just, I think, to me personally, from my eyes, my 52 years of life.
I agree 100%. Hey, Bruce, you're back.
I'm good.
Yeah, you're still a little laggy, but we can hear
you.
You're
still on Queer Street, Bruce. You still got the fucking punch to the fuck.
Sugar Ray Leonard. Remember when Sugar Ray Leonard was commentating for HBO? That was his like go-to phrase. He would say two things. Both fighters are a little tight. I wouldn't be surprised if someone got knocked down, and then when someone got hurt, they were on Queer Street. Imagine if an announcer said that today, like someone was on Queer Street.
Right.
It was a different time back then.
For sure. That's so funny that you mentioned that, because that was a term my dad used to mention a lot. When I think Snipes said Holmes, I think, and my dad said Holmes is on Queer Street. I'm like, whoa, but just that was a term used regularly in the 70s and 60s, 70s, maybe. But I remember Sugar Ray using that term quite often. Like, Sugar Ray, you're going to that too often.
That was his go-to, and every fighter they were tight and a little cold, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a knockdown. Sugar Ray had the same phrases that he used every single time.
Better fighter than commentator. I thought Sugar Ray was a better fighter than commentator.
Yeah, and all the networks that got into boxing, like when PBC made their big splash in boxing, they said we're going to do everything different. But then they brought Sugar Ray in as a commentator. DAZN did the same thing. We're going to do everything different. It's going to be things you've never
Oscar
seen.
did the same
Then they had
thing.
Sugar Ray in as a commentator. I love Sugar Ray. Bruce knows that's the first fighter I remember. I love Sugar
My
Ray.
Mount Rushmore.
As a commentator, no. Like Gil Clancy. I loved Gil Clancy. Him and Tim Ryan on CBS. Those guys. Gil Clancy was so good.
I really used to dig Sean O'Grady with
Tuesday night fights.
Yep.
Tuesday night fights. Man, Sean had that little.
Sean was good.
Sugar Ray Leonard, though, bro. Man, to me, Sugar Ray Leonard's Mount Rushmore stuff. The more I look at it,
as a fighter, yes.
Yeah. I had the pleasure to see him live in Providence. He came to the Providence Civic Center. I saw him in the fourth row. I was sitting behind Howard Cosell. It was one of those ABC Wide World of Sports fights.
There goes George. Gotta stay. He goes right there.
Well, I was a member of Sugar Ray Leonard's fan club. And I remember I sent in like $5 or whatever it was, and I got a poster. They sent a piece of leather that they said was part of the ring from the 81 fight with Tommy Hearns. And I got a cassette.
Oh, come on, George.
Oh, wow.
Still have it. It's old.
George.
Wow.
But, fucking cassette.
I was like Sugar Ray all day back then. And it still works. The cassette still works. So
he's still in real good shape. Sugar Ray's in great shape today.
Yeah.
I follow him on Instagram. He's always in the gym. He looks fresh as fuck. And if you're talking about these old timers getting back in the ring, I wouldn't want to fuck with Sugar Ray because he's a killer. That Sugar Ray Leonard Duran 2 fight, you're talking about the ultimate boxing puncher where he pulled every tool out of his fucking box. That's one of the most entertaining fights I've honestly. Sugar Ray, shout out to this man, and shout out to Blood Retro. Shout out to the OG George. This is the man right here. I'm gonna hit mute when Blood comes around.
That famous Ring magazine photo, the Hitman.
The Hitman.
Oh yeah. How y'all doing today?
Hey, Blood, man.
Blood.
Thank you for coming into my stream, brother.
Hey man, that famous magazine with the Hitman with that gun in his hand. That's Hey, you know what? That tripped me out when I saw that you sent into a fan club. I remember back in the 80s, man, when we used to look in the boxing magazines and you could actually send off and become a member of the fan club. That was the way we did it back in the day. It wasn't like the internet now. We actually had to send in and actually become a member of the fan club. And of course, we would get something back. I remember those days very well. But it's funny you bring up Sugar Ray Leonard. He's a little bit long-winded as a commentator. But at one time, he was working for like 3 different networks at a time. He was over there with CBS when he was ducking out of their fight with Donald Curry and Marlon Starlin when they was fighting for those USPA and NABF belts. He was being their commentator over there at CBS Sports while he was on his little retirement that he went through, right?
Yep.
So I think it's funny that you say that because SugarRay Leonard is really long-winded when it comes to commentary.
You know what?
Man.
If you guys have ever seen Mike Tyson's podcast, Hot Boxing, Sugar Ray Leonard, if you ever want to see a good Sugar Ray Leonard interview, because Leonard really doesn't, he's kind of like a politician, doesn't give you too much. Mike Tyson did an interview with him on his Hot Boxing podcast, and it was, Tyson was crying, and Sugar Ray was actually emotional. Sugar Ray actually opened up. He opened up and gave some real answers, and it was a great interview because Sugar Ray and Oscar De La Hoya, they're really like politicians when you talk to them. They give the right answers. They don't tell you what's in their heart. But when Sugar was on Tyson's show, Tyson was just crying. He was about how much Sugar Ray meant to him. And Ray saw that, and he started to get welled up, and he gave real answers. It was really good.
I watched Sugar Ray Leonard when he came out of the Olympics when he was an amateur in '76. I watched the whole marketing campaign. I look back on it and I see, bro, I mean, that the United States did not have a world champion back then. They had one world champion, Muhammad Ali. And that was it, man. Boxing was void of a world champion, but yet it was coming to life on Wide World of Sports, on CBS, on Saturday afternoons, and they were bringing in guys like a Subido Pedrosa, Roberto Duran, and De Jesus, Monzon, and Valdez, but they didn't have any American fighters. And Sugar Ray Leonard, even though he was a black fighter, the white people accepted him. He had that cherub-like face, man, and the story that went with it, and bro. And my brother, Blood Boxing, Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler's sneering at that like a bull. He's watching Sugar Ray Leonard get 40 grand in his debut while he's making 500 chump change, fighting in the Taunton fucking ballroom, some shit like that, man. And Sugar Ray Leonard was the whole rise, man. Every fight it was better and better. And I saw from a pretty boy in the Olympics where he didn't even want to become a pro. He became a pro because he needed the money for was his mother's operation or his father's operation.
Yeah, he wanted to help out his family. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, he called his attorney, Mike Tanner. He said, Mike, I need $40,000. You're going to be a pro fighter, and that was the beginning of the professional career, man. And at first, I thought he was the pretty boy. I didn't think I wasn't so excited about it. But after I saw him live, bro, I saw him fight Floyd Senior. And I saw the killer from the fourth row. I saw hands moving like Bruce Lee in a kung fu movie, and he just beat the shit out of her out on his feet. Floyd Mayweather Sr., the whole Mayweather family was on their feet. I mean, and I said, wow, this is a killer. This kid is something special. And I watched him go all, for the Hearns fight. I thought Hearns was going to beat him in that fight. I thought Hearns was just too much after the demolition of Pepino Cuevas. But yet, man, Sugar Ray Leonard, he pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and he always did that. That was one thing he always did. Even in defeat against Duran, whew, what a night, what a fight.
It's a different era, and Leonard and Hearns were so young when they fought as well.
So young.
They were young guys, and it doesn't happen today. Sugar Ray Leonard fought Benitez, and he fought Duran. And he fought Hearns. There might have been a fight in between there, but look at all those.
Come on,
that's all greatness. That's all greatness.
Well, the fight in between that was Ahab Kayuli, and that was an undefeated WBA junior middleweight champion.
Yeah.
Bro, that was and that was like, that was just a fight before he fought Thomas Hearns.
Right, that's the warm-up fight for Tommy Hearns. Yeah. So it's a different era, and people want to battle about my guys in my day were the best. My day, there's great fighters now. There are great fighters now, but people in every era, they forget the past, and that's a mistake. A mistake because a guy like Sugar Ray Leonard, he retired like 85 times. I get it, and the end of his career wasn't good, but in his prime,
any criticisms come in between the years of 1982 and 84. Because during that time stretch, he fought Bruce Finch and he fought Kevin Howard, and there was much more qualified welterweights to fight him. So that's where a lot of the criticism. Some people will bring Aaron Pryor up in that time period because he mentioned Leonard's name. But like I said, you had a USBA and an NABF champion that were very good and talented fighters in Donald Curry and Marlon Starlin. They was in the top 5. They weren't in the top 10. They were in the top 5. When Sugar Ray Leonard retired and he was commentating over at CBS. So there's some people who have some criticisms on that, right? But Sugar Ray Leonard was a great fighter.
That fight with
the way he did Hagler, Bruce, the way he had Hagler there, and he said there's not going to be a rematch. I wanted to kick that fucking Sugar Ray Leonard right in the teeth, honestly.
I just want to piggyback on Blood there. That fight with Kevin Howard, that's where Kevin Howard knocked him on his ass, man. And that's when Sugar Ray retired right after that fight. That was one of his 99 retirements right there.
Exactly.
But I think that was supposed to be a springboard. Hagler was at ringside. He was supposed to showcase himself, and all of a sudden, bang, Kevin Howard fucking puts him on his ass. I remember Sugar Ray Leonard. He almost snapped his fingers through those gloves. It was like, damn.
But who got up? And who got up that fight?
Yeah, he got up. But he also realized that left eye, was not seeing the punches like it used to, and that put him in a tailspin. So he had a lot of prima donna in him, but he was a tough son of a bitch. So he was it's almost a perfect oxymoron. Like you guys were saying, he had that gift of gab. He could go on and on, but yet, you punk on him. I remember seeing this thing where Ashton Kutcher, they did the punk on him. And he was ready to fucking throw some punches, man, until he realized it was a game and he was on television. It was like, he had that look in his eye. I wouldn't mess
with him. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with Sugar Ray. I mean, people in the chats are saying the past is forgotten. And, some people can't get away from the past and all they do is talk about the past. I like to celebrate the past with fighters because it's the history of the sport is awesome. We could do 6 hours talking about the history of the sport, but Sugar Ray, look, it's funny. I see a picture of Tommy Hearns and I see a picture of Marvin Hagler, and this is usually behind me too. I've got Sugar Ray behind me, so yes, sir. But the thing is, and someone said that Leonard admits he lost the Hearns fight. He admitted that a long time ago. He lost that second Hearns fight. And he said it on the Tyson podcast. He lost that fight. He almost had Hearns out in that 12th round. But yeah, Sugar Ray is my guy. But it was a different when I grew up. When fights were on every weekend, it was a different era, and guys fought each other, and they just did. It was very rare when guys didn't when the top guys did, and it happened sometimes, but it was rare that the best guys didn't fight each other.
Can you imagine Spence and Crawford? I mean, they're fucking 48 years old and they're still talking about them fighting. I mean, come on, fellas. It just shows you. I mean, I'm so sick of Spence and Crawford. I mean, it's like that would never happen back in the day when we had Donald Curry and Marlon Stalin and Hearns and Hagler and Duran. These guys were fighting the best all the time. They weren't inactive like 2 fucking years like the longest reigning champion, Gary Russell. They wonder why he lost. He hadn't fought in 2 fucking years. Come on, fellas. He's 30. You can't be like that. Iron sharpens iron. And that's the biggest thing going on today is the fucking shaman soft generation we live. A bunch of fucking shaman soft cocksuckers that aren't fighting, that are Twitter warriors that talk online like they're tough. Get in the fucking ring and fight.
Exactly. We don't want to hear all that bullshit. It's old school. But what you were saying earlier, though, man, that's so true, man, because if you take one of your magazines from like 1981, open it up, look at the ratings, whether it's Boxing Illustrated, you could look and see that these guys fought each other, right? Today, you could actually open up a whole ranking system and not one guy in the top 10 is fought. And I've done it several times. Like right now, if we went on and we opened up a ranking system, that's not valid. So I have a problem when someone says so-and-so beat so many ranked fighters. Well, the ranking system is not valid because nobody in the ranking system fought each other. So that's the problem. That's a problem when you have a whole top 10 and not one guy's fought each other. That's not a real ranking.
You can't have that. Ain't legitimate, blood.
Bro, when I used to get my magazines, you'd see them. I'd leave them on the table, and I would the top 10 would fight the top 10 because I would adjust them. I'd take a pen and say, number 6 beat number 2, and I don't know what those magazines they went with 1 million of them that I just left somewhere. I have a couple of hundred that I found, but you're so right about that the top 10 fought the top 10. You knew the names, like somebody's telling me the other day where they're talking about Leo Santa Cruz is going to be on that card, and Pitbull Cruz, but who are they fighting? They're going to fight nobodies, and it's going to be a boring fight 9 out of 10 times because people just don't get it today. It takes 2 to tango. You can't just put you can't put Marvin Hagler against somebody we just pulled off the streets and expect to have a full house.
And Bruce, when Hagler lost, he said, I fucking lost. I mean, this dude's now when they lose, they have fucking 10 million excuses. They go in there, there's zero accountability. There's no I mean, I don't know what world we're living in. I call it the short bus gang generation. It's the shaman soft generation. Add the fucking short bus gang, honestly. These people are fucking whack these days. These fighters are dressing up like girls. They're acting like they're Twitter warriors. I don't know where the sport's going. I like to see the blood and guts. Hey, I'm a big fan of just fights. I want to hear the bell ring. I want to see the best fight the best. But we get to see that with Castano Charlo. That's what I'm saying. So the sport still has a pulse. That's what I'm saying. Like we still have a pulse.
They keep it going. But, yeah, they didn't make no excuses back in the day because the truth is Marvin Hagler did complain about the Watts loss. But when he lost to Monroe, that was legit. Now, a lot of people don't know that Marvin Hagler had a bad flu in that fight. He would never admit up to it. It was his team, the Petronellis, that was going around saying he had a really bad flu. When the media asked him about that directly, he said, I don't want to talk about that. I'm just looking forward to fighting Monroe in the next fight. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have to hear all this stupid stuff and, fans. And back in them days, they didn't have fans on the internet to back them with all their
fanboys. There was no fanboys back then, Blood.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a different. It really is a different time, and these guys just don't. Everyone's protected, and they want to keep it in their own little house. PBC wants to keep it in their house. Like a guy like Boots Ennis. Boots Ennis is. I hope he cleans out this welterweight division. And I love Spence and Crawford, but I'm sick of hearing about them. Just like I was sick of hearing about Pacquiao and Mayweather for a decade. They're going to fight. They're going to fight. They fought when it was way too late. Boots Ennis is a guy that reminds me of those old school guys, that he might be a generational talent. I just hope that people don't avoid him, because your career is only so long in boxing. It's only so long. And I hope that he gets a shot this year. I don't know if he will, because the politics in boxing suck. But there's guys like him too, like Castano and Charlo, that fight. Boots Ennis, I want to see his journey. I am sick of hearing Spence and Crawford. I'm sick of
Valdez is out there too. Valdez.
Yes.
There's some good fighters out there. There's some really good fighters. And what happened, this is what I think, George, man. I think that a lot of those guys who came right after Floyd Mayweather wanted to utilize his blueprint, utilize the tool of social media, and they tried to be Floyd in some kind of way. They wanted to be the money man, the A side. So when you see somebody like Boots Ennis come in, that's a generation skipped over. So maybe we'll get some integrity back in the sport through guys like Boots Ennis and these younger guys who are coming in now, right? All of these younger guys, Virgil Ortiz, right? And these younger guys. We could get some integrity back, because they wasn't growing up on Floyd as direct as somebody like Errol Spence and them guys. So, I'm hoping that they could bring some integrity back and prove who's the best. I know that Boots Ennis is I heard he's taking the IBF route, but the question is when the time is right, will guys like Spence and them fight him? And with their fan bases and their extreme fan bases, their fan bases would say, no, don't take the fight. Don't take the fight. Take the easy route. Like, we never heard that kind of stuff about the easy route and all of that kind of stuff back in the day. You never hear Marvin Hagler and them guys talk about the easy route and all of that.
Hearns used to talk about it all the time. Hearns used to talk about that.
The worst even last night did to Hagler. That's the worst thing we saw. We didn't see anything.
Even last night at the fights, when they interviewed the winners of the fights, they said, who's going to be next? You have to talk to my manager. I'm going to take it easy. I mean, I heard it twice last night. And, bro, back in the day, these fighters, they'd have their opponent's name on their lips before they returned to the locker room. The anticipation would be there. I mean, they'd be gathering the kindling, because these guys today, they're going to take 6 months off. We're going to forget who they are. I mean, right now, right now is the time to cash in. The WBC Featherweight Championship, that's a prestigious title. We used to see that title defended all the time. Alexis Aguayo had that title, bro. I mean, damn. Danny Little Red Lopez Sanchez. I mean, we can go on and on. That's a great belt. And I can't even remember my auction's name after today if it doesn't keep going. If we don't hear an opponent. They're talking Leo Santa Cruz, like we said. Leo who? Is he still fighting?
Alexis Arguello was. I remember when he was a lightweight champ. He fought everyone. He cleaned out the whole division. Everyone, and then he moved up to 140 to fight who? Aaron Pryor. No one ducked anyone. It was rare. You can't name many fights from that era that weren't made. You can't name many.
Best
They
fighting the
fought-
best.
They fought each other.
And the ones that you can name, they would do to incarceration or, you know,
Or sometimes
something
promoters.
beyond
Sometimes
control.
it
Go
was
back
done
then. People go to the
discipline
prisons to fight.
Because for Sanchez and Eusebio Pedrosa, that had to do with promoters right there. That whole the reason why that unification didn't take place is because of the promoters and all of that stuff, right? So the politics sometimes did affect the
too. Didn't they? Didn't they try to make Little Red Lopez and Pedrosa, and after that, even Sanchez and Pedrosa.
They were going to try to do the Lopez and Pedrosa fight, but Sanchez ruined those plans, though. So,
George, could I ask George a quick question?
Yes, sir.
George, my Mount Rushmore today, right? I'd have Ali, Hagler, Salvador Sanchez, and Sugar Ray Leonard. That would be my Mount Rushmore today. It changes, but I always have Hagler and Ali. And what's your take on Salvador Sanchez?
Oh,
because this man right here, I remember growing up. I grew up, and this man was talked about. I don't really remember his fighting live, but I just remember the legacy growing up at the Portland Boys Club. You know, there was a box and all. There was a ring in the basketball court. You know, everybody had gloves. You just fight all the time, and there was always the older kids talking boxing. And this kid was brought up immensely. Him and Wilfred Benitez. And he passed away. That was the thing. It was like everybody used to talk. These older kids used to talk like, this would have been the greatest fighter ever, Salvador. They would try to imitate him. A lot of kids used to have the big hair like him, trying to be Salvador. And what's your take on this kid? Am I ignorant to say he's on my Mount Rushmore because what he did at such an age, and he pulled up his kid?
You're not ignorant at all.
Let me shout out a couple of guys came in before you answer that, George.
Sure.
I just want to give a yell out to Paul Evans out there and Punch Smollett. Appreciate you coming in here, man. John McSmith, I think I already shouted you out, bro. But thank you guys for coming in. Sorry about that, George. You know, this old man will forget to shout him out, and I'm just so grateful we're getting people to come in and listen to us, bro. We got 20 people. Do me one favor, hit that like button. You know, it'll keep us on here. It'll let people know what we're doing, man. And you know, we love doing this, man. We got the great blood boxing over here with us, man. We got George JAKOVIC. I got Mad Chad from Portland, Maine, man. You know, I feel like Marvin Hagler out there running in my combat boots in the snowstorm in the middle of the blizzard down in Provincetown, Mass, bro. So man, I appreciate everybody coming in here. Go ahead, George. Finish that story. You just tell. I think it was it a
Salvador Sanchez. Salvador Sanchez was a great fighter, and very few people know who he is today. I think he was 23 when he died in a car crash.
Was he the Lenny Bias of basketball, so to speak? Even though Lenny never did what he did, but you know the uptick. Who knows how far they could have went?
I mean, he beat Danny Little Red Lopez for the belt. You know, he fought everyone he could. There were rumors that he was going to fight Arguello. You know, Azuma Nelson was the last fight. Salvador Sanchez's last fight was Azuma Nelson, but Sanchez was only 23. The guy was a great fighter. I was in Mexico once. Shooting with Juan Manuel Marquez, and he took me. We were on the highway where Sanchez got into an accident, and everyone in Mexico, they know he's still revered, and he showed me where
Thank you, George. Thank you.
Died. Salvador Sanchez, it's very sad, you know, because he's a fighter of what could have been. If you look at his record and the guys he fought, he had such a storied career at such a young age. And it's too bad because there was so much more in front of him, and it was taken away. But the beauty about today, and Bruce and I talked about this, you can YouTube Salvador Sanchez, and you can see his fights. You can read about him. He was a great fighter, and it's just sad that
or you have to go check out my documentary.
Yeah,
George, one of the top 50 documentaries of all time. I have it as my top 10 documentary. Blood Retro. I dropped the link in the public chat. That's the documentary channel. And this dude just speaks from the heart. He just pulls up facts. He does the research. You know, this is an Ivy League type documentary, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I've watched it 4 or 5 times. But George, if you're
I want to see that. Where can
it's in the public chat. Bruce can drop it again.
Documentaries. It's a 3.5-hour documentary on Sanchez. I break down his style. I break down a lot of things. But you know what I think it is, though, George, man? And I think all three of you guys would agree with this. Back in the 80s, right? This is why people don't appreciate the fighters from back then as much, because when you look at Sanchez's old tapes, you only get one angle and the camera is shitty and it's slowed down. So when you have like 5 and 6 angles today, it makes these athletes today look more superior because everything's in HD. You can see the sweat coming off of them. It's just like the human highlight film, Dominique Wilkins. He did all the stuff that these kids today could do. But when you look at those old VHS tapes, it doesn't look as spectacular on there, right? He didn't have the opportunity to get 5 angles. Neither did Sanchez. A lot of the stuff Sanchez did was little small stuff that could kind of go unnoticed with that shitty camera that they had out back then.
And he took
one of the most brilliant fighters I've ever seen, George. One of the most brilliant fighters I ever see. I watch a lot of these old fighters, and I just see how they control pace and how they can take a punch. So many fighters don't. They go, "Wow, he's got a great jab. He can slick. He can do this." But if you don't have a fucking chin, because if you're a boxer, you're gonna get fucking chin checked. And Salvador got chin checked. And he could give one to take one. He had this fucking rhythmic style. He was like Thelonious Monk in there with the jazz rhythm, Bruce. He wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4. He wasn't, disco music, 4 on the floor. This dude was all over the place, throwing at angles, throwing combos, and he had that killer in him. He had the Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray had the Salvador Sanchez. That's what I'm saying. These guys are special fighters. They have that extra something that you can't teach in the gym.
Shout
out to my brother St. Cruzan out there, bro. Thanks for coming in. And I want to tell you one thing about Salvador Sanchez. When I first saw him, bro, I didn't like him. I did not. He beat up Danny Little Red Lopez, bro.
He beat
up one of the fucking Saturday afternoon heroes. Not just beat him the fuck up. Made his nose smashed up, busted him. Dude, he just destroyed him, made him
Not
quit.
to mention he was coming off of a 30-something knockout streak, too.
Oh, he was knocking everybody out.
Cover of Sports Illustrated, I believe.
You talking about Gomez or Lopez? Which one
I'm
you talking
about? Little Red Lopez.
Little Red.
Little Red.
Gomez was a killer. I'm talking about Little Red Lopez. That was the first introduction I had to Salvador Sanchez. He came on as a nobody, as an underdog on Wide World of Sports, and he just destroyed Little Red Lopez. Little Red Lopez used to come out with the Indian headdress on.
Yeah.
In fact, I think so. I think you might have mentioned him the other day in one of your documents. You might have mentioned his brother Ernie Lopez, Indian Ernie Lopez. That was, older brother of Danny Little Red Lopez. But bro, I love
the fighters that they would feature on TV. Little Red.
Yeah,
Lopez.
And Little Red Lopez would get off his ass and come back and knock you out. He had that Thomas Hearns right hand, bro. Unbelievable, man.
Sanchez and Wilfredo Gomez. John McSmith brought that up. Man, Wilfredo Gomez was supposed to win that fight. He was groomed to win that fight because he was unbeaten. I think Gomez was unbeaten going into that fight.
He was, and he had a 30-something. He had 30-something knockouts and
knockouts. They had a battle of the bands before the fight. You'd have both bands in there. Yeah. Bruce, what a fight that was! Wow.
Sanchez took him apart piece by piece and sent him back to Puerto Rico. He was, man, that's the fight. If you want to watch a Salvador Sanchez fight, watch that Wilfredo Gomez
and he
fight.
took this kid's best fucking punch. He took one right on the fucking chin, hard. I mean, that like almost like a Hearns hitting Hagler type shot. And that's when I think everybody said, wow. Honestly, because you have to have that chin. I don't care who you are. There's a few fighters that can go on and on and on, but if you don't have that extra chromosome fucking skull, you're not going to go far in the sport and be an all-time great. You can't become an all-time great with a fucking chinny chin.
When he passed, they had started negotiations for a Arguello fight, right?
Yes.
They wanted to get the Arguello fight going. And then there was a lot of other talent coming around, and Sanchez was right at that weight class because I think he was going to move up, and I think he would have ended up in lightweight or something like that. And you had all those young lightweights that wanted to fight him, like the guy from Puerto Rico, Edwin Rosario, who was like 18 or 19 years old at the time. You had other guys who were coming up. You even had Julio Cesar Chavez out there in Mexico who had already began his professional boxing career. So there was some great fights for Sanchez out there.
Who knows how good he would have been? Who knows?
I don't know if he could have made it through the Chavez of this world. And,
I see it. I see. He had something special. He had something that jumped off the screen. Honestly, this man had something special. Honestly, like I say, Lenny Bias with basketball. Yes, he never played a lick in the pros, but when he was at Maryland, he was fucking beating up Michael Jordan. You can't do amateur all that shit. But Lenny Bias jumped off the screen. Salvador Sanchez. How old was he, Blood? When he became champion, and how many fights did he have when he passed away? This man was at a different level of what we were seeing. Like, you can pull up his tapes. Yes, it's only one angle, but you see the beauty of this man's skill set.
The thing, too, that a lot of people need to mention, too, is he stayed off of drugs and he didn't fuck with alcohol and stuff like that. He worked really hard now. He did.
He run by slums where he'd grow up, where he meant to be. He'd run by the poverty-stricken people of Mexico. He lived, he fought for the people. This dude had something special, and who knows what he would have been. He's on my Mount Rushmore, Blood, to the day I die. He's one of the greatest fighters that ever stepped foot on this planet Earth. Shout out to Salvador Sanchez.
Well,
shout out to Red Bro.
Favorite too.
Shout out to Jed Kiley out there too,
Mount Rushmore. He's on everyone's Mount Rushmore. He's a bad guy, and a lot of people. I heard Canelo Alvarez say one time that he doesn't really see Sanchez to be as great as people make him out to be. But I say again to Canelo Alvarez, consider the footage. Consider that this is on slow down footage that we got of him. And then we don't have much of him either. We missed a lot of his fights because he had a lot of other fights that we just didn't see because even Mexico, they didn't pick these fights up on TV, right? So that's the problem with a lot of those old school fights is we can't see them all, right? That's the thing, you know.
Hey guys,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to. I mean, I know since we're talking about that era, I happen to have an Boxing Illustrated from 1982. So I'm looking at this is just the WBC ratings, and listen to the champions. At heavyweight, you had Larry Holmes. I'm just cherry picking. Light heavyweight, Matthew Saad Muhammad. Middleweight, Marvin Hagler. Super welterweight, Wilfred Benitez. Welterweight, Ray Leonard. Super lightweight, Saul Mambi. Lightweight, Alexis Arguello. Featherweight, Salvador Sanchez. Super bantamweight, Wilfredo Gomez. Bantamweight, Lupi Pintor.
Lupi Pintor. We know all of these guys. See, like in the
I've seen them all. Not only do I know them all, bro, but I lived through the era where every one of these guys were exposed on free television. I mean, Lupi Pintor, dude. I think he killed a fighter, Johnny Owens. I believe he killed a fighter.
I think you're right, Bruce. A killer.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this was like Ray Boom Boom Mancini in the Dooku Kim era, and this is, when Ray Mancini, he was projected to beat Alexis Arguello. You guys remember that?
Well, he was the darling of media, He
was the hype stream. He was the hype. He wasn't at the Jerry Cooney level of the hype, but he was hype.
Don't say he's hype. Don't say he's hype because you know better than that. Mancini was a little bit better than just the hype. Right.
Mancini was a good fighter.
No, not the hype. No, I didn't mean to say that, but I meant to say he had the media hype behind him.
Yeah,
he did have the media hype. He did have that.
He was the hype. I meant the media hype was behind him.
Hey, let me ask you guys something. Do any of y'all know?
Remember David Wolfblood? That the guy who promoted Too Tall Jones.
Yes,
he had
exactly.
the department in Cincinnati and Boom Boom Mancini.
Yes, gangsta.
Yeah, it was like the celebrity train.
But see, Mancini was featured on TV.
To be from Cincinnati, where that the mob ran boxing, and he Mancini. Bro, you got the right vowels at the end of your name, bro.
Let me ask you something though, Bruce, while you're on that, because I don't remember this, right? I was born in the early 70s, and I was probably like when Ed Too Tall Jones was doing his little thing at the end of 79, he came into the gate with Ray Boom Boom Mancini, and CBS picked up a contract with to feature Ed Too Tall Jones, and Ray Boom Boom Mancini got the feed off of the CBS contract. But what happened to the Ed Too Tall Jones fights? Why does
blood? Let everybody just know that Ed Too Tall Jones was an NFL player,
I know he was. He played for the Cowboys. The dude.
No, but let everybody know that because we're just talking that Jones like he's a boxer.
Jones was
yeah, because it's me, Blood, Mad Chad, George, and 20 other people out there.
Okay, I know you three know what I'm talking about, bro.
Right.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And I'm waiting to answer you too, bro.
I can't even see the chat because I'm doing this. I can't even see the chat.
Doomsday.
You're not doing what I'm doing. I'm doing a nice chunk here.
But Bruce, what happened to them? Bruce, what you didn't answer my question. What happened to them Ed Too Tall Jones fights, man? All right, dude. And Boom Boom Mancini's fights was fighting on CBS along with them. Why did they get rid of those fights, man? Well, I can't find them anywhere. George, you know anything?
Jones fights? I saw them once. I probably taped them on my VCR, which got tossed out a long time ago, along with about 1 million tapes that I could kill somebody that they did. But I don't know how to answer it because those were all entertaining, man. When I saw Yaki Manassas knock Too Tall Jones on his ass in his debut, I was like, oh no, they did it again. Another Andre the Giant over here. And man, it was the Too Tall Jones freak show. And after that, Mark Gastineau, and you had so much.
Lyle Alzado before that. Lyle Alzado, you remember Alzado?
Oh,
that was like time of the clown when those guys were fighting.
Who was the fucking Mickey Rourke? I think they had Mark against Mickey on a pay-per-view fight, and who was the other one there, man? The guy who played baseball.
Here we are. We're talking about Jake Paul. Let's segue into Jake Paul and Logan Paul. We're here talking fucking warriors and fighters, and we're talking fucking clown shows. Mark Gastineau and fucking Mickey Rourke. Fuck those fucking clowns. We're talking gladiators, warriors that sacrificed their life for this.
But Ed Too Tall Jones was definitely part of the landscape back then. He was
flash in the pan. He was a Jake Paul.
But he's the one who kind of put Boom Boom.
But it was different.
Listen, a lot of people don't know he put Ray Boom Boom Mancini on because of the CBS contract, and that's.
But Ray was on his way, Blood. Ray was on his way, regardless of that.
What's that? Say that again.
Ray Boom Boom Mancini was on his way to stardom, regardless if Ed Too Tall Jones was there or not. Yep. It was yes. Ed Too Tall Jones was a circus show. That's what it was. It was a circus show.
You know what's crazy?
But the gym that was in that circus show was Ray Boom Boom Mancini.
But
right, great publicity. Great publicity.
Ray was only 20 years old when he fought Arguello. Which, again, let's talk about this era. Arguello was a established champion, like an established great fighter then. And back then, Ray Mancini was 20 years old fighting Alexis Arguello.
I know.
And he
who
might
had been
not
around
be ready.
He was already established as a legend.
But he fought. I mean, if you watch that fight, he gave Arguello a tough, rough.
Absolutely.
Arguello was in the deep waters, and he won the fight.
And CBS brought Arguello in there wearing the black hat as a bad guy. Mancini was the All-American. His father
was never a bad guy, though. He couldn't.
Well, no, not to people who knew him. And let me finish, George. CBS wanted to portray that. They wanted to portray Ray Mancini as the All-American. He had his dad at ringside who was denied a title opportunity because of the war. I mean, Ray Mancini, they had the champagne in his locker room ready to cork. Alexis Arguello was not American, and they were trying to put him up as the bad guy, but he was the good. And after Mancini, he had his arm around Mancini. He said, "Man, I feel for you and your father." He was bringing tears to the audience, and people, all of a sudden, CBS caught that, and now every weekend we're watching Alexis Arguello go from featherweight champion, lightweight champion, then to win the
sweet guy, like one of the sweetest guys in boxing, Alexis Arguello.
Oh yeah. But he had to show us that. CBS wanted to put him off as the bad guy, and Arguello.
And then you saw Ray though coming out of that as a loss, as a young kid, a sophomore in college. As a fan favorite, like a lot of these people are afraid to lose.
They never rematched because Mancini knew he was never going to beat Arguello, so he went the WBA route. He had an unbelievable fight with Arturo Frias. Any of you guys remember that fight?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where he won the belt. Yeah, I remember.
That's where he won the belt.
But the thing about it is that they picked him up with a string of fights on TV. The network, which network was it? The CBS that picked him up? Okay, yes. So when he went through that 9 or 8 or 9 that ended, you had Bobby Chacon, all of them guys on that whole stretch of fights, right? That's where he became real popular, and we used to see him on the commercials and stuff. Because I remember seeing Boom Boom Mancini; they were advertising him heavy. Like, see, brave Boom Boom Mancini fight Bobby Chacon.
Bobby Chacon,
back in the day, you know how we used to be watching TV and see the commercials.
Yeah.
No,
hey, Bruce, real quick. This is fucking great, fellas. Honest to God, I'm blown away. It's Sunday morning. I just have to say, God bless. Brush your teeth, say your prayers, send your love to your loved ones, and let's just keep talking boxing, because I am blown away by you three guys. Honestly, I really feel like a fucking fourth wheel here, because you guys are just so brilliant. Honestly, I am so honored. I mean, honestly, fellas, hopefully someday we can all hang out at a fight and just go to a fight and talk about it and chop it up in real persons, because I know we're all real people here, and this is a beautiful thing, Bruce.
The reason why the discussion's so great,
I'm so real. My wife just came in and took the TOKER 2 away from me, man.
She did what?
I first sounded like a walking cancer ward over there, getting the first hit of the day.
Hey, I'm smoking one now, but you know what, man? The reason why the discussion's so great is because we're all old enough to be able to relate to each other's what we're talking about. When I came on here, George was showing a thing of a fan club, like the Sugar Ray Leonard fan club, and you know, that kind of stuff, man. I remember that stuff, man. You know, I used to be one of those kids who would order stuff out of the magazine, the boxing magazine. Correct your plan, get muscles, learn how to jump higher. I was one of those guys who would order all of that little stuff on the
right.
You know,
right.
You guys know what I'm talking about, so I could talk to you guys.
I go before that way that, you know, the bully would kick sand in your face, and if you buy the wider product, kicking sand in his face. You know, I mean, shit.
The legendary comic. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
We will believe in that with wide eyes, man. I can't wait for that to get here. You know, when
I saw the girl, like, he was skinny and scrawny in the comic book, right? He was skinny and scrawny in the beginning. The guys come over, they kicked the sand on him, and then he went out and got big off the guy. And came back to the beach and whooped their butt. You guys both know what I'm talking about. That's why I like talking to y'all guys of y'all's age. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm talking about.
You know, it's funny because I'm looking through that 1982 magazine, and I'm seeing all these things to send in for, you know, I don't see the one with the guy getting sand kicked in his face, but you know, there's this gain 5, 10, 15 pounds, you know, and then you get the woman. Then you'll get
fake women. Yeah, they had fake women you could buy. Y'all remember that? They had fake. Fake
I'm sure they still do.
That were made of, I guess, rubber or something.
Well, wait, look, and then there's this. There's beautiful fighting females. Like the things that were in the magazines back then.
When you look at it now, it's so funny, though, you know? It's so funny when you look at, you know what else I miss, guys? You know what I always wanted to do is it's been my dream to own a card store, sports cards. Remember when we used to walk into the store and you could look at the Beckett and you could, you know, trade in your cards and stuff. Yep. Those 80s and 70s and 80s feelings are so good, man. And we'll never get those back, man. The world ain't like that no more. There used to be a guy who owned a card store.
Right.
And man, I used to go walk in his store back in the early 90s and sit in there for hours looking at cards and talking about sports and magazines. Those spots are gone, man. I hated seeing that guy when he got shut down. I remember he had to, because people stopped going to him when the internet and all that came.
Yeah.
You know, and I hated seeing that because it's like a piece of me was going to as a sports fan, you know.
I'll tell you, one of the biggest regrets in my life is, man, when I was a kid, there was actually a barber shop in my neighborhood, and the guy was this guy was 100% boxing. You go in there, nothing but boxing, folders, pictures on the wall. The magazines were all KO, Ring, Boxing Illustrated. You know, there was maybe you'd find a Time magazine on there if you were lucky. But I mean, this guy was 100% boxing, and I was too young to appreciate it. I was, 12, 13. I just wasn't into the, what he had there. And, I kind of like went off and forgot about him. And when I realized what he had, I went back and, the guy was gone. It was history. And I'm like, shit, man. I wanted to talk to the guy, John the Barber, his name was. And he was a golf pro too. But, he was gone. I was older, and man, you know, the hit. I can only imagine. I almost guarantee the stuff that he had in there ended up in the dumpster. You know, when the landlord came in, because
or in the hands of people who didn't care about the stuff he had, right? Which is
yeah.
what ends up happening.
Well, you know, they used to go in. A tenant would move out, boom, boom. Within a month, there would be a whole nother business in there, and there'd be no remnants. You wouldn't even know it was the barber shop when you went in the place again. But
yeah, man,
the guy had everything. I'll bet the magazines he had, shit, man. You know, I mean, I can pull out one blood. You know, talking about your man over here, bro.
Oh, yeah, I got that same magazine, bro. I got that same exact magazine. Yes, great. Yes, I that's a great read, brother. Great read. You know what I liked about Boxing Illustrated, though? I think it was Boxing Illustrated that did the top 50. They did the top 50. Didn't they do a top 50 somewhere in the middle? Yep, they actually did a whole top 50. It was their own top 50, but it gives you an idea of who the fighters were. Because some of those fighters, you could see Marvin Hagler when he was at number 35 and some other greats. I like the fact that they do that just to tell you who else was in the environment at the time.
Yeah, you know, I love to.
It's a little, no.
That's okay.
My bad.
No, it's okay. A lot of people, when you talk about the past, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about the past. Keep moving forward. But without these stories, I mean, these stories just enhance boxing. You guys know who Randy Gordon is.
Oh yeah, Commissioner Gordon.
So Randy Gordon does a show every night on Facebook, and he just talks boxing. He has a topic, and he talks boxing. And I was on his show because I've become friends with Randy over the last few years. I was on his show, actually, and it was, he didn't know how to work Facebook and get another guest on live like we're doing here. Randy's not that good with technology. So I said, well, Randy, I'll show you, like, I'll watch the show tonight and bring me on. He said, yeah, I'll bring you on and I'll introduce you. I thought it was going to be for 2 or 3 minutes. Randy brought me on, and the topic was Lyle Fitzsimmons wrote an article that day for Boxing Scene. It was his list of Muhammad Ali's top 10 most memorable fights. This was right after Ali's birthday. So Randy kept me on the show. We went through the list, and he let me talk about each of those Ali fights. And Randy Gordon, and I pointed this out to Randy. I didn't see any of those fights live, but I read about them. I've seen them a million times. But to have someone like Randy who was there, he could tell you what the hype was, what the atmosphere was for Ali Frazier 1. I can't do that because I wasn't there. I wasn't reading newspapers.
Well, then Randy, he used to hang around Bert Sugar?
He worked at Ring Magazine. He and Bert Sugar.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I know him from.
They ran the magazine. So
yeah.
To have him around that couldn't tell you firsthand what it was like for all those fights. People like that should be celebrated, but now it's not by a lot of people. They want the young, they want the new and the fresh. But me talking about Muhammad Ali, I have my own stories, but I never met Ali. He was around. He was a friend of Muhammad Ali, and he was around for all those fights, and he could tell you how the world was when Ali fought Frazier, when Ali fought Foreman. And I love that.
That's what I watched that show, and man, that's the era that I had my awakening in boxing, the 70s, bro. I mean, that Ali Frazier fight, I love to talk about that because people don't understand. That was the most important fight in the world. I mean, I was watching Randy the other day, and he said the Vietnam War stopped. And he's right, because the North Vietnamese, everybody wanted Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. This is the baddest. We're only fighting with bullets over here, man. You know, these guys are fighting in the ring, the baddest asses. The war stopped, bro. You know, it's like they said for Joe Louis and Max Schmeling back in the day. You know, even the hookers took the night off, bro.
Boxing's worldwide. That's the one sport. Yeah, soccer's big.
But Randy Gordon, man, you know, he was a writer for Illustrated and Knockout, and he was with your boy Bert Sugar.
Yes.
And Stephen Farhood and all those guys that were writing for KO and Boxing Illustrated. But yeah, I was kind of like I saw you and Randy on there the other night, George, and I'm like, whoa, look at this shit. And you guys were like making me choke up inside when I because Ali, bro. You know,
where's Randy at now, though, Bruce? Where can I find Randy now? He's not on YouTube, is he?
No, Randy's on Facebook.
Oh,
Facebook.
see, I don't have Facebook.
I don't have Facebook, but George shares them, bro.
No Facebook.
But I can get you his. I mean, if you want to reach out to him, I can surely get you his info.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man. You know what? I was talking about something the other day. I actually had this discussion with someone else, but it's funny because the writers from that era, the writers from today, when they say the old media, they like to say the writers from today are the old media. That's a different set of writers from the ones I grew up on reading in KO magazine and stuff like that. So this is not this group of writers here. I don't think have as much knowledge on the sport, because I used to go to fights on credentials. I got sent to a fight on credentials in 2007. I was sitting next to a guy who told me the only reason he was writing for a boxing website is because he couldn't find. He was a journalist major who couldn't find something in a job in his own area, so he ended up coming to boxing to make a little bit of money. So they don't have the knowledge of the guys from that era. That's not the same guys. So people need to stop confusing those writers and saying they're the old media. They're not the old media. Those are new guys, is what people need to understand that.
Agreed. You know, Bruce, I have one Ali story. I didn't tell it to Randy, but when I was at HBO, it was my first few years, and someone in there told me that Muhammad Ali was in the building, and he was on I forget which floor, the 15th floor. There was like an executive dining area back there. So I had never met Ali. You know, I mean, he was my idol. I wanted to meet him. So I went up to where he was, and the doors to the dining rooms, you couldn't see through the glass, but you could sort of make out figures in there. And I remember I went up there because I just wanted to meet him and shake his hand. I didn't want an autograph. I just wanted to be in his presence. And I walked up to the door, and I could see his silhouette at a table, and he was by himself. And I knew it was him because I could see the shake in his hand, and I could also see there was no one else in the room. And I stood at that door. Every bit of me wanted to go in just to say, you know, I'm so happy to meet you, and I love you. But I didn't. And I didn't because he was by himself. I wanted to respect his privacy. And I stood outside the door for about 20 seconds, and I left. And I told people about it, and they're like, "You're crazy. You should have went in and met him." But I respect.
And I'm gonna be the next one to tell you that you're crazy too. I'm gonna be the next one to tell you that, man.
Yeah, but
he's gonna have many private moments. But
he was by himself, and he was eating, and you know, I just respected him maybe too much, and I didn't get to actually meet him because he spent his whole life. Everyone wanted to shake his hand, and I love you, and I was about 6 feet away from him.
I see it, George.
I'll tell you another one of my biggest regrets in my life. I guess my life is boxing, but I had the pleasure to see Ali once. He sparred at the Providence Civic Center. He sparred against three opponents. He went 3 rounds with the legendary Jimmy Ellis. He went 3 rounds with a guy named Alonzo Johnson. Any of you guys remember him? He was a sparring partner.
I remember him.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
He must have been 300 pounds when he went in the ring, and he also sparred with a guy named John Dino Dennis. He was a up and coming heavyweight out of Providence. He fought George Foreman, but Marvin, and as a matter of fact, Marvin Hagler was on the undercard. But anyway, after the fight was over, Ali was giving autographs out. I don't know if he had them already signed or not, but I was like 21. It was a Saturday night on the streets of, I think it was a Thursday night on the streets of Providence, man. You know, I didn't want to wait in line. I could have waited a half hour, 45 minutes. I could have got an autograph of Ali and a picture and probably shaken his hand. But man, you know, I'll be able to do it again.
You're 21, man.
I regret that, bro. I regret that probably forever, man.
I know you were smoking some of that old dirt ass weed.
Oh, bro.
Bruce,
Probably. No, I never smoked that dirt ass shit back. No, that was after
fucking Thai bud back then.
Yeah, there you go. The Thai buds, the Hawaiian, the Colombian gold, the Panama red. But
he know the names and everything.
I know.
The Mexican weed used to come in. The Mexican weed.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah.
Hey, fellas, George, my biggest connection with boxing, like with famous people prior to the internet, I flew out. I helped a friend move to Oakland, California from Portland, Maine, and we move out there. We go to this bar called down in the San Francisco Business District. Go down to this bar. I walk in, and who's sitting there? Irish Pat Lawler. Yeah, crazy Irish Pat running for mayor of San Francisco on an anti-gay bill rights bill. I'm like, Pat, you're not going to win. But this dude fought some killers. He beat Duran and all that. He's working at the Pittsburgh pub, and we're just hanging out. We go to the gyms. We go to the Maldonado gym there, the big bar room with a big gym underneath with a little pit bull ring. He said, that's where I used to spar. He used to spar with killers out there. There's killers in the Bay Area. And so I'm hanging out with Irish Pat, and he goes, let's call Bert Sugar. And so he calls Bert up. He goes, I got my friend, Matt Chad here, and I talked to Bert, right? He's like, yeah, you write with Ring Magazine. He got done. He praised me. I go, Bert, no, I don't write for fucking nobody. I'm from Portland, Maine. I just wrote out here. I'm hanging out with Irish Pat Lawler. He goes, Jesus, Matt Chad fucking right. So I became friends with Bert Sugar. I sent him lobsters, corresponded with him daily. My dad, that was one of my proudest moments as his son, when my dad said, who are you talking with? I said, Dad, I'm talking with Bert Randolph Sugar. We're talking about Michigan football. We're talking about the Kentucky Derby. We're talking baseball, and we're talking boxing. I mean, it was like I had his number, and I called him daily. He had no internet. He had a typewriter, and he was a salt of the earth. And he was in the trenches. Like my friend was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in Mexico. I called Bert up. I said, Bert, my friend's got to fight with Chavez. I was in Indiana at the time. He says, you tell your friend to hit that motherfucker in the nuts when the bell rings, because he's fucked. It was a late TKO first round knockout. I paid for the pay-per-view. That was the last pay-per-view I paid for, Chavez Jr. versus Lula. But me and Bert were tight. He was my connection. And I just love it. He got a kick out of me because I loved it. And like I said, it was my old man. I think that was the most proudest thing he ever saw that I done, other than, maybe had a couple kids and hit a few home runs, but my dad had a twinkle in his eye when I used to get a hold of Bert Randolph Sugar, and you stand right there.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to interview Bert a couple of times when I was at HBO for shows that we used to do. And he, Bert Sugar, he was literally a walking encyclopedia. And the way he could tell a story and his whole character with the cigar and the fedora. I mean, that's a character. I miss those characters in boxing now.
Well, how old was Bert when he passed away? If you don't mind me asking, how old was he when he passed away? Bert Sugar.
That's a good question. I think he was at least 60s. In the 70s or 70s.
I don't even think he was that old. I think it was a heart attack too. I thought it would have been the lung cancer, but I think he ended up dying from a heart attack. It was a tragic when he passed, because I had him in my little phone, and I said, well, I can't call Bert no more. And but my friend went down to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame up there in Canassa, New York, the boxes, all the historians, and my friend went up there. Bert signed the last book, the Angelo Dundee book he wrote. That was his last book he wrote. Bert has an encyclopedia of books that he's wrote covering all different sports. Yep. A genius.
He was 75 when he died.
75, yep, heart attack.
Yep. So he was all right, but he was such a snowflake, and sports and boxing need that, because Cosell was another one. Bert never got to the Cosell level, because Cosell was, Bert, I think, would tell people to suck his dick more than Howard. Howard had more of a diplomatic way of working, and Bert was more like, go fuck yourself. Here I am, I got a cigar, let's talk fights. And he was an encyclopedia when you're talking about fights. And that's just a pleasure, Bruce, when you show up here and you get to bring up a name like Bert Sugar, because he ain't mentioned enough. And we do need more characters like this.
Great storyteller, great character.
They're all dying out, and those are the guys we need because they lived through it. And they're all dying out. All of those guys are dying out. Howard Cosell is from a different era than Bert Sugar. Because Howard Cosell was born in 1918. Bert Sugar was born in the 30s. So he was the young gun when Howard Cosell was around.
Who do you think had more? I mean, not that it matters because both were highly knowledgeable. But who do you think between Cosell and Bert Sugar? Who do you think had more knowledge on boxing?
Bert Sugar.
Bert Sugar did. Bert Sugar did because
that's a one-round knockout. That's a one-round knockout.
And Bert Sugar not only had it on boxing, he knew it on horse racing. He knew it on baseball. Bro, Bert Sugar was just an encyclopedia on almost every sport you could think of that was popular of the day of his time, man. I mean, you could sit down with Bert Sugar and you might as well throw your watch away, call up your wife, you're not coming home that night, bro, or get the pot of coffee on, because, man, that guy, you think we're bad up here, man. Bert Sugar, he just would just spew those gems, drop those gems on you one after another. He does it on. He used to do it on that round table that he did, man. I think he'd have Gil Clancy on there, and Lou Duva. Oh man, I catch that. But
don't undermine Cosell, because Cosell was around. Like I said, he was born in World War I, so he had a lot of knowledge, more knowledge of what the environment looked like and shit like that, because he was around two decades before.
Not only that, but the reason why I asked not only that is that between the two, Cosell was able to get more personal with the boxers. Yeah, he was most famous for his relationship with Ali, but he also had a close relationship with a lot of the champions back in that era. I remember because when he would do the interviews with Frazier and Foreman and the like, he was just as knowledgeable with them as he was with Ali. I think he was more personal with Ali, and there was a genuine friendship there, a sort of tete-a-tete where the way they would go at each other, but you knew that it was from a place of love. This is why I asked who had. I personally, I think Cosell might have some of the more personal stories.
Personal stories, I agree. And he and Ali, they were entertainment when those two got together.
Lennon and McCartney.
They were entertainment. Hey, G5, you haven't said anything yet.
Yeah, I was just gonna. My brother G5.
Man.
We're spitting it out so fast out here. My main man G5. How are you, my brother? I'm so glad to have you on here. I just looked at your text, bro. God bless you, man. How are you today?
I'm good, man. Salute, my brother. Salute, George. Blood, what's going on? What's up, Jed? Mad Tad, what's going on, man? Salute to all y'all good brothers, man.
Shout out to Jed and G5.
What's up, guys? So, not to veer off subject. I came in here specifically because Mad Chad had that thumbnail with Russell. And how many of you?
Oh no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about some boxers. We're talking about old school boxing over here, bro.
I thought because I saw the Russell.
We already ran Gary Russell Jr. to the ringer over here. You can catch that on the playback, man. We're talking about Ali. We're talking about Frazier. Judge is telling us some blood boxing is giving us some history over here, bro. Get some old stuff over here. Calm down, collective. Calm down, bro.
I'm the small fry on the check, up on the panel. I'm the young buck, but I do my homework. So, I know who Cosell is and who Sugar is as well. So, age.
So since you know who both of them are, and you're from a different generation, what's your view of Cosell and guys like Bert Sugar from your generation?
Well,
Bert was just had so much knowledge, and at the end he never. I don't think for 10 years I ever saw that cigar lit. Only back in the old days, he would just have that thing hanging out of his mouth all the time. In fact, I think he gave one to Curtis Anderson, bro. And that's how he got his name. He used to call in. They did a talk show in New York, and Kurt Anderson used to call in, and he'd know the answers, and they'd say, "Damn, you got a dictionary in front of you, boy." And he'd say, "No, this is and a beautiful relationship was formed, and thus became the legend of Kurt Sugar." But anyway, man. We're chopping it up over here, man. For the 70s, man. The stuff you're talking about. Somebody hit me the other day, and they're like, "Bruce, you got to do a show on the 70s, man. You lived through that shit." And I'm like, man, I could do a real good one because, man, we saw so much happen in that era, man. The end of the end of the 60s for one thing, but how it opened up, man, with Ali and Frazier. And bro, that was like we think there's fights going on today. You haven't lived through that. That tore the world apart.
No, you know what the interesting era is? The transition between Bob Foster and Matthew Saad Muhammad. I think that whole era is underlooked. The light heavyweight era of the 1970s. And me, I was too young, even though I was alive. I'm from the early 70s. And I think George gave his age. Me and him are the same age. We're from the early 70s. So our memory is going to be a little bit shaky from that. Do you agree, George? Like we're not going to remember the Rumble. We were alive during the Rumble in the Jungle.
Right.
We don't remember that.
But I do, you bring up the light heavyweights.
Well, that's why you're in my show, because I do remember that shit, bro.
But exactly. That's why I'm over here.
But Bruce, the light heavyweights. The light heavyweights.
Me too, blood.
That era,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That era of the light heavyweights that you talked about with Matthew Saad Muhammad, you could do a whole show on the depth of those guys and Marvin Johnson and John Conti and Yaki Lopez, and the list goes on. And on Mike Rossman, and then Mike
one of the first fights I remember. It wasn't even on cable. They had a thing. I think it was called Fights from the Spectrum, where they showed Philly fights, and it was Saad Muhammad and Richie Cates.
Oh my God!
You want to talk about a fucking George Foreman and
Ron Lyle.
Ron Lyle, bro. This was watch that fight. Dig that up on YouTube. Blood, you ever caught that fight?
I'm gonna check it out, bro.
And he was Matthew Franklin at the time, and then and Marvin Johnson was in that mix too. He was a Northeastern boy, bro. I mean, that was like the light heavyweight title, bro. And yet the Yaki Lopez and Saad Muhammad fight, that is the fight of the century right there, man.
You know what? Unfortunately for me, the Saad Muhammad I remember is the guy who was fighting Maynard, and then that version of him. Now I can remember that version of him very well, but he was old and washed up when I really started taking a note to boxing.
That was after Dwight Mohammed Kwawi. Before that, Saad, he was a Danny Little Red Lopez. He would get beat up. He would get busted up. And he was built like a brick shithouse. He was the perfect specimen of what a boxer should look like. And he'd always come back, like the guys you were mentioning, George.
Bruce, we
He
watched
took too many
fights,
punches,
right?
though, man. That's why he was struggling as a 30-something-year-old, because he took too much.
The
fights that I did see on YouTube, he was taking a lot of shots, though, man.
Blood, me and Bruce we just put a fight on him. No, me and Bruce just
I personally thought Arguello went through some battles himself when he went in the 70s.
Those days, man.
Yeah,
first of all, I think that's why fighters aren't as aggressive today, because they know the effects of CTE, and they see it. Whereas the boxers before, they didn't have the access, the social media. These guys they were, the punch drunk guys. They hung out in the back somewhere, but today where they see the effects of what happened to fighters who went in these toe-to-toe wars that we were talking about, and they're like, I don't want to end up like that. So maybe that has a little bit to do with them not being as aggressive, not taking as many fights, not taking the chances that we want to see, because we grew up on that shit. That's what boxing's all about.
They would continuously give those guys license back in the day. Today, they would not give those punch drunk guys. Those guys would stay around 10 years after they were already slurring with their speech and things like that. And they still in their fight to learn with their speech, man. It was terrible.
Yeah, blood. It was terrible. It was inhumane. Like racehorses, like they scratch racehorses before a fight if they're before a race if they're unhealthy they can't run. Like boxers back in the day, you show up, you make weight, go fight. And it's changed so much. It's a different time and place. And we're dealing with a shaman soft generation. People get their feelings all up in a bunch. No one wants to prove who's the toughest man. There's A side, B side. We're definitely living in fucking fairyland. It's sad but true. Yes, there is some gladiators out there, but when we talk about this different era, it's nice to bring it up because these guys fought. They weren't inactive. They fought the best people that was out there. There was no A side, B side. It was
there was A side, B side, but the fans were not discussing
There was, yes.
There was,
yes.
but it wasn't discussed by social media.
It wasn't discussed.
That's the difference.
It wasn't a big debacle on, oh, well, he should get this or he should get that. The fighters knew what they was worth. It's like, I bet if I beat you, we can rematch, and I'm taking what you gave me, or we going 50-50. You know,
it wasn't all out there in the public on social media for fans to discuss. There was always an A side, B side, but it's just that it wasn't all over social media. That's why it took so long for Gomez and Sanchez to sign, because behind the scenes they were negotiating and trying to price each other out and shit. But there was no fan base, no extreme fan bases. Imagine if there was social media when that Mexican versus Puerto Rican thing with Sanchez and Gomez was going on. If there was social media, they would have talked those guys out of that fight, and them guys might have never fought. Their fans would have talked them out of the fight.
Good point.
Yeah, you gotta kind of wonder how it would affect it. Like let's take for instance when Foster lost to Mustafa. When was that? I think that was in 77, 78 or something like that. And because in my opinion, that was an upset, right? Now, mind you, back then I was just a kid, so I barely knew anything about boxing. I just know that I followed it because my stepdad did. But I'm going to tell you, if social media today was there back then, they would have tore that fight apart. You know, so a fight like that, I could just see it now. The type of bullshit that would have gone on, and all the shit talking that would have happened. I am so glad, even though you did have your fanatics from back then, because you had some serious fanatics back then that caused a lot of issues between boxers, but it was nowhere near to the degree it is now whatsoever. But it's just good to see, because you got the A side. You look at the A side and the B side from back then, and you're right. It wasn't so prevalent as it is now. You know.
I agree with that. I agree 100 with that. Yep.
And also, it wasn't like there were a million choices like there are today. You know, boxing was one of those it's one of the sports that was major league, and when it came out, man, it was on, a lot of it was on prime time. It didn't really matter if it was on a Saturday night like it is today. Everybody seems to fight for these Saturday nights, man. I mean, you're talking, the fights that we're talking about, the biggest fights, man, Gomez and Sanchez, that was on during the week. I think it was either a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. Same with Night of the Hearns. That was a weeknight fight. Thursday night fight. Ali and Frazier, damn, that was on a Monday night. Ali Frazier won.
Right.
So I could rattle on and on, bro. Thursday night fight. Ali and Frazier, damn, that was on a Monday night. Ali Frazier won.
Video?
Right.
Somebody's mute is doing crazy things, man. Somebody's mic.
George got back on. I think he just needs to. Jay George. Oh, there he is. He's got it.
Doing crazy things, man.
Bruce, like I say, you can't even be offended by the fighters of today because, I got a little buddy. He's 12 years old. You know what I mean? Today's world is so much different than the 70s when I grew up. I was born in 69. But like the 70s was so different. I used to swim naked at the boys club. Like we'd just show up, there'd be fucking 80 boys in a swimming pool all fucking naked. No one gave a fuck, you know, and there was, you know, now it's just, you know, there was a boxing gym. Now there's no boxing gym at the boys club. If you get in a fist fight in high school, you're fucking locked up at the detention center. No one fights no more. It's just a whole different world. And like these fighters of today, we have to just remember we're old fuckers. We're dinosaurs. G5, not you. But basically us other fellas, we're more than halfway out of this fucking world. And you know, we just grew up in a whole different thing. Our experiences, our aquarium, our life is just, we see it in a different way. And we really get a kick out of these fighters. I know Blood goes in hard on a lot of these fighters because he couldn't imagine Tommy Hearns acting like these cupcakes.
Yeah, because they're just real soft. The generation is
and
soft.
It's just because it is. They can't help it. It's a victim of your environment. You know what I'm saying? It's like they can't help it. Like Marvin Hagler didn't have a Twitter and Instagram. And who knows if there was an Instagram. Hagler might have had a fucking social media addiction and he might not have been Hagler.
Exactly. We don't know if those fighters would have behaved the way they behaved back then.
Yeah,
they wouldn't have had the hunger.
Different world, Blood.
A guy like Sugar Ray Robinson, who liked to party and all of that stuff, you give him social media and all that shit, he was already a hard negotiator.
Who knows?
Give
You'd
him
see a gag ball with the motherfucker. He'd have a gag ball with a fucking orgy.
You give Ray Robinson a fucking extreme fan.
Ali, give Ali a fucking social media. What the
It's
fuck?
a wrap.
They might be totally different.
Different day. It's just a different day. I mean, it just is. And you can't even, when you bring social media into it, you know, you talk about different eras and the styles and guys fought each other back then. You're right. Social media, you know, would Sugar Ray Robinson, would he have been like this Instagram hero with 10 million followers? And how would that have changed his life?
Exactly. Somebody like him. And some of those fighters like Johnny Bratton, who was like these celebrity type guys who like to, because he used to like to smash all the girls over at Motown. He was like that type of guy, you know. Those guys would have been crazy with social. I don't think they would have made it.
I mean, I agree with Sugar Ray.
So we have to give the fighters of today a little pass, fellas, because we're not living the life. We weren't born in 1990. I mean, we were born in the fucking, you know, there was no internet. We had fucking 6 channels if we were lucky. You know,
well, look at the kids today. They don't have, they find their relationships online. Their friendships are all online.
You need to wear a helmet, a fucking
They can't even fight. Look at the tapes
from
cigarettes. Go look at any of the fights on YouTube, like these little fights they have. Them little kids don't know how to fight or nothing. They don't know how to throw punches. They don't know how to do nothing. They're just a different era of kids, man. They're not like we was. They're not.
I have 3 kids. I have 2 girls and a boy. My youngest is 13. I have a girl who's 17, and my son is 19. And I see how social media is with them. And my 17-year-old at one point told me she had a boyfriend. It's like, oh, really? It was someone she had never met. Wow. She was friends with in some group. And that's the era that we're living in, where you can have friends and boyfriends and girlfriends, but you've never been in the same room with them. That is how I see it. I've seen it in my house. So it's a different era. And, you know, it's hard for me to relate because my friends are my friends. I've either seen them in person, been able to touch them. Right. Now you have relationships with people you've never been in a room with. So it's different. And I don't get it.
I fucking love Blood. I don't even know him. I never met him or nothing. I love this fucking man. I'd buy him a drink. I'd open the door, say, Blood, pleasure to meet you. What do you need, sir? Because I've never met him. All I do is know him on social fucking media, going ballistic on motherfuckers. He's going nuclear bomb Hiroshima on these cocksuckers because he's just full of the passion. He's
because it's not no one we're going to meet in real life. I don't take this stuff serious like these kids do.
Right.
Like you just said, you know, people are developing relationships with people that never even met and stuff like that. And they really want to get serious and they value these online fake friendships too much. You have to know people and have seen them in the flesh to really get a full understanding of them. You know, and that's the big difference. You know, that's
Go ahead,
it's different. It's different. It's a
It is
different day.
different. I got young kids. I got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I mean they're smart as smart as a whip. And some of the stuff that I hear, like the cousins saying, I'm like, what? What you said about the boyfriend that they haven't met? I heard that too. I said, so let me get this straight. So this is your boyfriend, but you haven't seen him in person? Yeah. I was like, oh man, okay. Yeah, so yeah, you're not lying about that. I was just like, man. I'm not
gonna lie.
It's different.
My last 2 relationships I actually met online. So my current wife and my previous girlfriend, I both met them both online.
But you actually met them in person too.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
But the thing
you
is,
met them, yes.
I didn't consider us in a relationship until we met in person.
Right.
Now they're in a relationship and they still haven't met. They could be in a relationship for like a year or two, and they take that shit serious.
Only person I ever met online was Bruce, and he was the real McCoy. Like, I think if I was to meet Blood or George or G5 or Electrojet, I think us fellas on this panel are real human beings in this plastic world. You see trolls, you see people that are fake, you see keyboard warriors. I think we're all real human beings here, and that's the beauty of Bruce Goes. Like, I met the dude in person. He is what he is, and he knows I am what I am. It is what it is, and it's a beauty, but it's a whole different environment. Like we said, can you imagine Jack Johnson with fucking a Twitter and an Instagram? Come on, fellas.
It just doesn't fit the times, like George said. Because the personalities of that time just wouldn't work with the internet.
Take Jack though and put him today. Just say if Jack walked into a time zone and you could put Mr. Johnson in 2022 with a fucking Instagram and all that, with all his skills, stick him in a gym. He just wakes up, he's in a gym 2022. What the fuck would he be?
How many women would be following Jack Johnson, bro?
He'd be the most popular.
He'd be the guy who'll make a porn. He'll make a collection of pornography videos.
He'd have the Patreon going for sure, bro.
hey, go to the gym with the big Jared Anderson outfit on.
Bro, did you hear the latest, bro? They want Bob Arum wants Wilder and Big Baby Anderson to be fighting.
Let's see it.
Which Big Baby? The new Big Baby or the
read
old
it this
Big
morning in boxing.
Jared Anderson, George.
Are you kidding?
Jared Anderson.
That oh my God, you would no.
Big Baby Miller.
No.
Oh, I said Big Baby Miller. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking Big Baby Miller. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No. A legit.
Jared
Anderson.
Anderson. Yeah, talking about Jared.
Yeah, no,
that'd be a
man.
great fight, I think, man.
Worried there for a second. I said, Big Baby is not ready for some shit.
No, but that would be a great fight, bro. Don't you think?
What?
They need to fight for the name. They need to fight for the name and
no.
I'll take the snack fighter. I'll
Wilder.
take the young fighter. I'll take Big Baby Anderson. Big Baby Anderson floored fucking Tyson Fury. Big Baby Anderson's the face of the American heavyweight division. Believe me, this kid's for real.
So is it true that he beat up Tyson Fury in sparring? I heard that, but I don't know if it's true.
I heard it from a pretty good source. I can't confirm it, but if I had someone to a face to my gun to my face, I would say honestly, I think he did do it because Jared Anderson knows he has to keep his cards safely. What happens in sparring stays in sparring. He's a big kid from fucking Ohio. He's a tough motherfucker. He's the real deal. He's the only heavyweight signed with Snack. Like I say, if you're signed with Snack, you're at an advantage because Victor Conte is building all the rules. He's fucking Vada, Nada, Bodada. And believe me, Jared Big Baby Anderson has hands. He has hands. And when you're a heavyweight, you need to have power and pop. We'll see if he has a chin because I don't believe he's been tested. But I believe he would beat Deontay Wilder today. If they were to fight next week, I would have my money on Big Baby Anderson.
Not enough experience. Not enough experience.
Come on, enough experience. Wilfred Benitez was 17 fucking years old. Come on.
That's a different monster altogether, Chad.
That's
a completely different monster.
He's a freakazoid. LeBron James came out of high school. Look at Moses Malone. If you're ready, you're ready. This dude's got God-gifted, talented. Big Baby Anderson is special.
but Moses Malone was always an adult.
Listen, first of all,
Big Baby Anderson was called the Big Baby because he was 14. He was the biggest dude in the gym. He got the nickname because he's always been the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the gym.
Until you put him in the ring with real fighters, because
he just beat up Tyson Fury. He'll pound the fuck out of Fury. Come on, Electro Jet. He floored the dude. That's why he canceled, because Fury was concussed. Jared Big Baby Anderson concussed Tyson Fury. That's why he backed out of that first fight, whatever. The cancellation, the COVID was a concussion. He wasn't COVIDed. He was concussed from Big Baby Anderson.
No, Chad. I do not believe he's ready.
That's my English connection over there. Believe me, they know about this big fat fraud.
I'm gonna tell you,
the dude's a fraud. Big Baby Anderson would pound the fuck out of him. He's ducking Dillian White. This dude's a big ducking fraud. Come on, fellas.
No, I'm just like, we gotta stop saying they're not ready.
Shit. I'm just gonna say this, man. Anderson's not ready yet. He needs more seasoning. And he needs to win real fights. He needs to win real fights. I don't care what anyone says behind the scenes. I don't care what happened in the fucking sparring match. What happens in the ring is all that matters to me. And as soon as he stops fighting cab drivers and beats
who should he fight, Jed? Jed, who should he fight? Who should he fight?
You know what? Why not put him up against an Ortiz?
No, that is a good fight.
Why not put him against Ruiz?
Hey.
But you know they're not going to put those fucking fights together, though. That would be good. But they can't never iron these.
You got to understand where I'm coming from, because he doesn't. I'm not downing the kid. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. He is definitely part of the future. But if you throw him in the ring with a veteran right now, you throw him in the ring right now with a vet, he'll get fucking smashed.
What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
That's a very, very close fight to me. I would love to see this fight, bro.
Man, I'm just like, look, we got. He might not have the experience, but what better way to get the experience? You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and put him in there. You know what I'm saying?
Throw him in the deep end. I'm not saying he doesn't need to be thrown in the deep end. Throw him in the deep end. He ain't ready for Sanchez, Tony. Tony, he ain't ready for Sanchez. I'm sorry, Tony, but yeah, put him in with Ortiz, put him in with Ruiz, put him in with Wallin. Why not that?
And the reason I say put him in there with Wilder, because he said he already spoke and said he could beat him. He feel like he could beat him. Go ahead, I want to see it. Like I'm not. Let the young goons go. It's boxing. You chose this sport. You know what I'm saying? The only way to get experience is by fighting somebody with experience. You know, so. Go ahead, get in the ring. Let's see it.
And the reason why Bob Arum wants that too, man, is because he thinks that old Wilder washed up with damaged goods too. A lot of people think Wilder's damaged goods.
People need to stop sleeping. Yeah. People need, just because Wilder lost, they need to stop sleeping on people. Wilder still got some fight left in him, but it's where his heart's at. If his heart's not in it, then fine. But as far as his age and his skill set, he actually seemed like he improved against Fury the last fight. I think he still can do good for boxing right now. I just think that he needs to focus and continue to fight. I think Wilder still can make. First of all, he can make he can still bring in viewers, and he can still do damage in the ring. He's not. I don't count him out yet. And that's how I feel. And I'm not a Wilder fan. I'm just looking at it strictly from a boxing fan point of view.
Hey man, shout out to Xavier the boxing nerd, man. Good to see the youngster in here, man. Shout out to you.
What's going on?
Bro, yeah, welcome to my chat room, man. I'm in here with my brother George JAKOVIC, man. We got Blood Boxing in here, Mad Chad, G5 Gabe, and Electro J popped in, man. Welcome to the platform, Xavier. What's happening, brother?
Not much. I was just you guys were talking about old fighters, so I joined, but now you aren't, so I'll stay though.
What the thing is that I'm digging on over here, so we're talking about the late 70s, the 80s era, bro. You know, I don't know, for some reason I pop with that era. I love that era. I lived through it.
We could go right back to it too.
I was thinking way
Go
further.
right back to the 70s and 80s because
I was thinking way further back.
That's what brought my brother Blood up here, man. And you know, and G5 and everybody else, man. You know, that's what I wanted to do a show on. I was only going to do a little show earlier this month. We wanted to talk about the fights last night. We did. We got some old heads going over here, man. I want to keep it that way, man. You know what I want to talk about, man. I want to talk about the fights that happened after the Ali and Frazier fight, man. The strange things that happened in boxing. We were expecting a rematch right there, bro. And then what happened, man? Some guy named George Foreman came on the scene, and then this kid from San Diego, Kenny Norton, came on the scene.
Yep.
George and Blood, man, and Mad Chad and Electro Jetting, anybody on here, speak on this subject, because I lived through this. I was a kid. I was just coming into puberty, and this interested me, man.
See,
who the hell
about
breaks
it is,
him and Ali's jaw?
That's a great era, man, and I was alive, but I don't really remember it. But I have done a lot of research on the era, and that's the thing about it. Like Xavier, the boxing nerd, he does a lot of research. He's a younger guy that does. I think he's in his 20s, and then we have G5 Gabe to offer us a perspective from this generation. We all need to learn from each other, from the different generations. You know, we all need to bring it together, learn from each other.
It's funny because I've got a worse opinion about this generation than you guys do. I don't care if you've got Instagram. Get in the gym or get in the ring. Because Harry Greb didn't really stay in the gym because he was fighting every other week.
See, I love you already, Xavier, because you brought up Harry Greb. Like I love everyone on this panel, and I love you too, because you brought up Harry Greb. You know?
You guys know who this guy in this picture is on the Police Gazette?
And let me shout out before I forget the other people that came in there, man. Let me shout out Tony Boswell. Let me shout out Peter. Yeah, well, hang on. Let me shout out Peter Van Ox out in the chat room, man. Oscar's out there. Lance Meyer stopped in. And, I just want to acknowledge everybody. I appreciate Shidwi here, man. Thank you for coming in. Kwikwi's still here, man. Thank you so much. And of course, man, my brother 150. Bro, we're talking some old school boxing up here. Bro, you are the future of boxing. I listen to 150. 150, he'll rap the fucking shit out of tunes, man. He did a rap dedicated to me, Jimi Hendrix tune. He rapped over it, bro. I want to use that as my intro. We got to get together. But anyway, man. Salute to you, 150. What's up, my brother?
Shout out to you, 150. I didn't see 150 just entered. Shout out to you.
What's going on, 150?
North Carolina in the house.
Hey, y'all can hear me?
You good?
Yeah, bro.
My shit low?
No,
a little bit.
You good?
Oh, yo. Oh, there we go. Okay, yo, shout out to the chat and the panel. Shout out to everybody, man.
All right.
Yeah.
I wish that I was old enough to understand, because I was too young to actually absorb what was going on in the history that I saw. But when you guys already know, Mad Chad and Bruce know, I've only been at one boxing match in my whole life, but it was Ali Norton in '78. That's the only fight I've been to in my entire life. And that's
76. The third one in Yankee Stadium.
That would be 76. That would be 76.
No, 78, brother.
No,
that was the second match.
Trust me, bro. They didn't fight in 78.
Trust me. It was 76.
76.
Yes.
Because I was 11. Okay, I was born in 65. I was 11. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, 76. Yeah. Listen,
that was one of my favorite years of all time, man. 76 was.
You're just so old, Jed, that you don't remember. That's all. You're that old.
That was the bicentennial year, man.
His numbers got twisted. His numbers got a little twisted.
It's just that I regret that I was so young not to be able to understand the history that I was watching. The thing that I was more excited about than anything was the fact that I was there with my stepdad, who I was very close with at the time. And
who do you think won that fight?
I thought Ali won the fight. But I'm going to tell you right now, I thought Ali won the fight because that's who my stepfather loved. You know, so
I loved Ali, but I thought he lost the fight, man.
Bruce, you weren't 11 years old either.
He was in really good shape in the Norton second fight. It was the second fight where I thought he won convincingly. Go look at the second fight again. Look at Ali's body in the second fight. He's in significant shape in that second fight with Norton.
He got his jaw broken in that first fight.
Yeah.
He was playing golf the day before. They were showing that on Wide World of Sports. He did not take Ken Norton seriously. Nobody did. And I was watching that fight.
The second fight, though.
In 1973, bro.
Hey, guys.
Nobody took him serious.
Hey, guys, in the chat, Hawker Mustang, it just made me laugh. He wrote, I saw Luis Ortiz fight in 1976. That's hilarious. Luis Ortiz, I feel like he's 76 years old. So that was funny, Hawker Mustang. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that made me laugh.
That comment right above it, though. I don't know what he's talking about. Old school is new school. I mean, think about it like this.
He's right, bro. He's right. He's right.
I mean, Harry Greb beat Mickey Walker on July 2nd, 1925, who was a Hall of Famer and an undisputed champion in 2 weights.
Yeah, 14 days that's later, not going to happen again, bro.
No, I'm not even saying that. I'm saying 14 days after doing that, he beat Maxie Rosenblum, who was an undisputed light heavyweight champion and Hall of Famer. He beat 2 Hall of Famers within a span of 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, that is great history.
But we're never going to see that again. Xavier's dropping knowledge.
These kids.
Xavier knows shit.
Xavier.
Hey, George, Xavier is only in his early 20s or something, too.
I love it,
I've only been watching
boxing. And Xavier knows his jazz on top of that, bro.
Bruce, can I interrupt real quick? I just want to interrupt real quick.
I'm 33.
To give a shout out to everybody in the chat real quick, man. Shout out to everybody swinging by. And I want to give a shout out to my favorite entity on the internet, Bruce Goes, for bringing by. We have a celebrity here. I'm surprised Bruce doesn't have George just solo, because I want to hear from George. This dude is, not that none of us else has been there, but this dude is somewhat of a Hollywood A-lister that's been in the trenches. He's been with all these great events. He was with HBO, which is in my DNA.
You're talking about me?
No, I'm all about you, George. Honestly, right now, and Bruce. I'm all about George and Bruce in the chat and everybody on the panel. But we have a celebrity here. And I feel like, Bruce, to have George swing by, I'm just so honored.
I'm no celebrity. Trust me.
No, you really are, sir. You're a humble celebrity. And,
I'm like all of you, and I grew up loving the sport.
Somebody's got their mic echoing here.
He fits in so great to this conversation, George does. You're making him feel uncomfortable, man, Chad. He's just one of us, man. He's kicking. He used to go to the card stores like us and get the Beckett and all of that stuff.
Wait,
at the Sugar Ray Leonard fan club card. Man, come on.
Blood, since Matt Chad brought that up, if you guys would please call me sir. And if you meet me, please don't make eye contact with me. Don't make eye contact with me, please. It's Sir George from now on. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Don't forget, you got to do
George. Whenever you want to sprinkle a gem, whenever you want to drop any of your wisdom on here, man, you just let me know, and I'll put everybody on mute, brother.
But Bruce, listen, I want to thank you, Bruce. My thing is, I'm going to make myself an Italian sauce. I'm making an Italian sauce today for dinner, so it's going to take 6 hours to cook, brother. Thank you for letting me be up here. Nice meeting you, George. Everybody on the panel. God bless you guys, and I'll come back later. But I got to get the sauce cooking.
Get it cooking.
Thank you so much for coming on, Jed. Peace to you, brother. Hey, bro, glad you're feeling better, man. Glad you're looking good. Glad you're feeling better. So yeah, say a prayer for my brother Electro Jet out there. He's been under the weather, man. He's looking better, man. Peace and prayers to Electro Jet.
I'm not even watching football today. I'm going to watch the Salvador Sanchez documentary again. That's what I'm watching later, because this Salvador Sanchez, believe me, we talked about him earlier. We'll talk about him later, and we'll talk about him tomorrow, because this dude was something that we don't see today. How old was this man? How many fights did he have? He didn't even have that much of a decorated amateur career. Yep. This dude was just a God-given fighter, and we need to see more of these fighters. I think Virgil Ortiz might be that type of fighter. Let's see what happens. But I just want to see the best fight the best. But shout out again to the documentary of honestly blood boxing, retro boxing. I get really confused with blood because he has so many different entities. comes so many angles. But that Salvador Sanchez is a top 10 documentary of all time boxing documentaries. I think he's not getting the rating he should. This is one of the greatest. His Hagler documentary is almost done, and I am so looking forward to this shit. Like I said, the best fucking person I met on the internet for knowledge for boxing is Blood Retro Boxing, and I don't need to be a
thank
dick
you.
rider.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. If you guys want to go back to that 70s talk though, and also, man, George, man, I like to know, I'm just meeting you, man. I like to know more about your experiences too, man, and exactly what it was you was doing with the sport, if you could just go through that a little bit so I could acknowledge myself too,
Well, to get the quick version, I grew up, loved boxing. I boxed briefly. I grew up in Rahway, New Jersey. So there was at a YMCA that they had a boxing program. It only lasted 3 months, and the guy left, and it never came back. But I went to school, got a communications degree. Somehow I ended up at HBO Sports because I wanted to get into boxing and get into something I love. So I got a job there, and I was there for 15 years, and I was a producer at the end. So I was the guy that did features, did stories on fighters. So I got to literally travel the world and meet fighters and trainers and tell their stories. And I worked live fights too. So I always related back to being a boxing fan and then being able to be in this industry. And I'm still in the industry, telling fighter stories. I love it. Every day that I work, I love what I do. I'm just like a little kid, I told Bruce this story. My first day at HBO, I was in the bathroom. I was in the bathroom. I was taking a shit, and I sat there and I said, "Oh my God, I'm taking a shit at HBO Sports. I'm in the HBO Sports building, and Sugar Ray Leonard and George Foreman might have shit right here where I am." And it was unbelievable. On lunch breaks, I would pull fights out and watch them. So I'm just extremely I've worked hard, but I've also been lucky, and I basically make my living telling stories of these fighters, and I love it. So
what year did you start over at HBO? What year was it?
I believe it was 2000.
Okay, so that takes you back pretty long way, around the time of like Bernard Hopkins and
Bernard Hopkins.
Oscar De La Hoya was still significant, and all of them guys, right?
Bernard was the first fighter I ever interviewed, and you have to get used to interviewing. I was nervous. Yes, I knew boxing, but there's specific questions that I had to ask him. The interview was only supposed to take an hour, and it lasted almost 3 because people were falling asleep in the room. Bernard Hopkins, if you've ever seen him talk, he won't stop talking. And I finally had to, when I would see him breathe, I would have to jump into another question. But it took me an hour and a half to do that. So he's the first guy I ever interviewed. And what was supposed to take an hour took almost 3. So, yeah, I was there for those guys. I wish, I love the era of Tyson when Sugar Ray and Hagler and Tyson were on HBO, when they were just kind of rising up. I wish I could have experienced that.
Mid-80s.
Yeah. So, but HBO was a great look. It was a historic place for boxing, and they did great things. And at the end, the people that ran the company did not love boxing, and they did not want to be in the boxing world anymore. And it's gone. Something that was special is now gone because the people there didn't want it anymore.
Right, and it's part of boxing tradition here in America because that was one of the major networks that featured boxing, and guys who were our age, we remember HBO when it first came around, and we grew up watching boxing on HBO and seeing Larry Merchant and Jim Lampley, and when Sugar Ray Leonard was there for a little while, and it's part of our tradition. So HBO, when that went away, it was like when Tuesday Night Fights went away from USA. It was kind of like that. It was like a part of our boxing history. Even the old card stores going away and everything. It was like a big part of us was taken away when
Yeah.
HBO went away. I miss
And
HBO. I even
people
miss Larry
forget.
Kirkman, to be honest. I didn't
People
like him
forget.
at times, but I miss him though.
Oh
He was
yeah,
honest.
people forget those HBO fights, man. I can remember a lot of the incidents. I didn't have HBO because it didn't hit my household at the time. But I'd go to neighboring towns, or I'd rent a hotel in the city of Providence, a hotel room at the Biltmore that had HBO. And we do that, and it was like an event, man. We'd bring the booze up with us. If we had a lot of dough, we'd have room service. If not, we'd bring pizzas. But you get 10 guys, everybody throws in $20. Everything's covered, and we saw like Jerry Cooney and Ken Norton was on HBO. No pay-per-view. Aaron Pryor and Alexis Aguayo, HBO standard Friday night fight. It was great, man. It was you can't even describe the value that you got for that $10 a month when you subscribe to HBO. Where today, every one of those fights I'm mentioning, $79.95, with the app.
Yeah.
So,
and you want to know the difference between our generations is that you had people to watch that fight with. I don't have any.
Oh yeah. Like I said, no problem getting up 10 people.
I've tried. I have legitimately tried.
Hagler fights. Hagler was a HBO. Hagler was a child of HBO. All his fights were televised. The Antifermo rematch. They had I remember the card we rented a room for was Hagler and Hampshire rematch, and on the same card was Mike Weaver and James Quick Tillis.
Yes.
Unheard of by today's standards. A heavyweight championship.
That was interesting what he just brought up. He said something about we had people to watch the fights with. You don't really have anyone to watch the fight with. Elaborate a little bit on that.
I had one. I think I had one fight I ever watched with friends live, and it was Rigondeaux and Lomachenko. And outside of that, nobody ever wanted to watch a fight with me. Like, there's only one person, and right now it's like my fiance, but she's still trying to get acclimated to watching violence. So,
well, at least you have a fiance that's interested in some of the interest.
Wow.
She will legitimately let me explain Mike Gibbons' record and show it to her for like 30 minutes, and she's interested and ask questions.
She's
so that's
keeper,
a blessing in itself. Like this man who's buried out in Minnesota that nobody talks about.
See, that's how the eras have changed. It's like boxing. We used to gather up and have fight parties and things like that.
Yeah, people would talk about.
When he brings that up, it kind of brings us some significance because the fight parties kind of died out and things like that.
Oh yeah, like that's what we're talking about going to the hotel. No problem hooking together 6-7 guys. Yeah, definitely I'm there. Hey, are you kidding me? I can't get anybody over the house to see a fight. And you know what it is too? My generation, people are going to bed earlier, and technology surpassed them, bro. I talk to the OGs on the corner, and they don't know the ESPN Plus app.
That's complicated to them.
Like all these promoters keep saying, but all these young people are on apps, so put it on DAZN. It's an app. Well, all these young people don't actually watch boxing. They're on Instagram watching a bunch of 15-year-olds bicker. Like literally, they're just on Instagram. Like they're on Instagram and YouTube watching teenagers. They're not watching teenagers that fought like so many teenagers back in 100 years ago, like Harry Lewis. He went pro when he was, I think, 16. That was regular. He went pro when he was 16, and in the span of 9 years had 172 fights.
Where was Harry Lewis from? What part of the country was he from?
I have to look that up. I'm not quite sure. Philly. I should have known that.
Wow, yeah. Because there was a lot of boxing gyms in the environment back then. Yeah. And there was no distractions,
All over. Johnny Kilbane, longest reigning featherweight champion from Cleveland, Ohio.
They need to get rid of pay-per-view, man.
Yeah.
That's where it starts first. First they gotta start with that. Once
I don't even know how does flopping a pay-per-view make money?
They should take these guys. They should take all these guys in boxing, every promotional company, not just Top Rank, put guys on free TV. It will be more open to the public eye. More people will tune in. More eyes will be on the sport. You keep putting guys on these shitty ass pay-per-views for $80. Don't sell. No one knows the fighters. It's the same tune every time, man.
You know how bad it is? Just for me as an example, when I was when Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao, that was 2 years before I started watching boxing. When I heard about that fight, nobody talked about boxing so much that I was like, wait, boxing is actually still a thing? That was my immediate reaction as being just a teenager who didn't watch boxing. My dad, when he was my age at that time, let me think for a second. I need to do some math, actually.
And mind you, I don't think pay-per-view it's not bad. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it could be successful if they have the right dancing partners, man. You know,
right? My dad wasn't a
the
boxing
tango,
fan, but he knew
takes two to tango, man.
Yeah, my dad wasn't a boxing fan, but he knew about the Marvin Hagler Tommy Hearns fight. I've asked him like in the last year, like about certain fights that happened when he was a teenager. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was a big fight. Everyone kept talking about that, but he didn't watch it."
Right.
Yeah, it transcended sports. It was front page news, bro. Everybody knew about it. See, right now, boxing it's pricing itself out. Oh man, I mean, we can't afford to pay $80 every 2 weeks for a pay-per-view, even once a month. People have mortgages to pay. Damn, I mean, we're in the middle of a recession, basically, man. If you've been to the
inflation's going up, and not the prices of wages.
Yeah, and I've talked to people where it's only the app's only $10, and so well, I already got about 20 apps on my phone, and I understand that. The platform, the way they're selling fights now, they have to figure out a new way. Sponsorships go back to relying on sponsorships money, because believe me, when we saw a fight and it was sponsored by Pizza Hut and Budweiser, we'd have pizzas over here. We did a couple of cases of Budweiser support the fight, bro. I mean, that's and towards the end, I was seeing Rolex and Mercedes Benz sponsor the fights. You don't see that anymore. Now they just want that $79.95, and half the time I hear people bitching it's not coming in properly. So who's gonna do that twice? I don't see much of a future for Boston if they continue doing the pay-per-view platform to sell fights.
I agree.
Yeah, and then they need to learn how to put together a complete card. Like, in the 80s and things of that nature, they put cards together where, the whole card from top to bottom, you're like, man, I got to stay tuned in. Now you'll have one good fight and you'll have just like filler fights in. And they expect people to just buy it.
You remember that Manny Pacquiao's last fight? What was the undercard? Like some
we can't remember because it was
it was somebody that Floyd Mayweather beat.
The undercard, who you talking about? Oh, you talking about Guerrero and Ortiz?
Yeah,
they fought. Yeah, Magsayo was on that card. Fight. Isaac Cruz was on that card. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that Ortiz fight was like really, really bland, and that was the co-main event.
Yeah, but see, that's only people like yourself can even know that, bro. I mean,
what it was shit.
You go back to those Don King cards. I can never in my life forget the fight that the card that he put on. It opened up with Sugar Ray Leonard knocking out Davey Boy Green. Marvin Johnson got beat by Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, and then John Tate gets knocked out by Mike Weaver, and Larry Holmes, I think he fought Leroy Jones, all on the same card for free. Bro, I can remember the undercard because it would have been a pay-per-view main event today, any of those fights.
Oh, yeah. And they would have separated all of those fights and made them separate events, too.
Exactly.
Let me read out a card to you guys.
For each one of those. So
that wasn't even an HBO fight. That was an over-the-air Monday night event, bro. Wide World of Sports event.
Man, check this out. Thursday, August 19th, 1926, Harry grabbed Tiger Flowers, the second fight. That's two Hall of Famers right there. That was the main event. Phil Kaplan, Dick Evans, those were two top fighters of their day. And then Maxie Rosenblum, another Hall of Famer, and Chuck Burns.
And those fights were action-packed, smaller gloves.
Yeah, that's one card.
More, loose back then. Was the things were there. Man, I really like Tiger Flowers, man. You bring up a name right there, the boy with the gold grill in his mouth, Tiger Flowers.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. People don't really talk about that. And Sam
was
Lane
way ahead of his time with that gold grill in his mouth, man. I got a lot, man. What made you want to go and start looking into boxing from that era? What made you want to research that era?
Man,
because that's not something you get from too many young guys.
I remember when I started watching boxing, I found boxing. When I first found boxing, I just started clicking the first fights on people's records, and then it led me back to the 30s. So just random fighters nobody talks about. I was just like, what the hell? It's really all connected, and then just really Wikipedia, just looking through old champion lists, and then I'd look to a Wikipedia page, like, where's his record? Like, Henry Armstrong's record was not on his Wikipedia article 4 years ago.
You know how we used to have to get our information back in the day? We would have to write the Ring magazine and hope that Bert Sugar would answer a
And the
question.
Ring magazine wasn't even read all the time. They had Gene Tunney having 2 losses, one to Tommy Loughran.
Oh, they were always wrong. There was misprints all the time. I see them all the time.
Yeah, they had his record in 1980, and that Ring magazine with Sugar Ray Leonard on the front. They had his record as 65-2-1.
Yeah, they would make mistakes, and you couldn't correct them because they had already put the magazines out. But at one time, what we would do is, if we had a question about Harry Greb, the only place you was going to get an answer was through writing the Ring magazine. I'm sure Bruce Scholes will remember, and George, you had to ask the questions, like write them and ask, because if you went, there was no internet. You had to go to the library, and there was 30 big books that we had to look through, and they didn't have no information on that. So we would have to write the Ring magazine and hope that we get selected, because I wrote them and asked them questions, and my stuff never showed up. So
it's like
George, did you do any specials on HBO about these golden fighters like Xavier's talking about?
Special for Mike Gibbons or Harry Greb? Never gonna get that nowadays.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I don't know. That shit was so long ago, man. I don't know, man.
The best you're gonna get is a YouTuber, which is actually gonna probably
be better than it would have been. Some of those fighters.
Hey, getting back to some more recent history, Blood, you laid that heavyweight documentary on, was it Friday night you put it up there, man? And it was 10 hours, bro. I started watching that, and shit, man, that is the era that I really loved, man. I mean, Greg Page, Michael Dokes, dude, Ronaldo, Mr. Snipes, Jumbo Cummings.
It was a little chaotic. The era was really chaotic, but it was a really great era.
That's what made it so interesting.
Yes.
Because every top amateur in the country was all being, they were all being released at the same time, and they actually fought each other. That was the beautiful part about it, man.
And there was a lot of Ali clones at the time, because everybody was trying to fill the shoes of Ali. So, it's just like today. You see a lot of fighters trying to utilize Floyd Mayweather's defensive tactics. You would see everybody with their hands down, popping a jab, dancing on their toes. And there was a lot of Ali clones and things like that in the environment. Then you had Larry Holmes, who had one belt. He had the WBC, and then he had the WBC at first. And then the IBF came into play. He pretty much dumped the rest of the belts. There was some sanctioning body problems. And then you had the belts kind of bounce around like Larry Holmes predicted, until they had the tournament and Mike Tyson came up on top, put the belts back together, and then the belts got broken up again in the 1990s, So,
when those belts got bounced around, man, those were some good fights.
Those were some excellent fights. Right, Caitlin Thomas and all of those guys. Tim Witherspoon, you had Tim Witherspoon on your page. Big John Tate,
Mike
all of those guys. Mitch Green, Tony Tucker, Tony Tubbs. We could go on and on forever. What's his name? Ronaldo Snipes. There was so many. Even Jerry Coetzee, Jerry Cooney. You still had the old guys and Ernie Shavers. He was still trying to.
That's what I disrespected.
Jimmy Young.
That's what I disrespected Larry Holmes a little bit for. I think he avoided a lot of those. He avoided all of those fights. He didn't want a rematch with Weaver, so he didn't want the WBA belt. He didn't want to go to South Africa to fight Coetzee. He didn't want a rematch with Witherspoon.
He also fucked over Greg Page too.
Yeah, Greg Page, and he didn't like Michael Dokes at all. He wouldn't give Michael Dokes a second chance about a unification fight. So
he would hold any arrest that Michael Dokes had out there. Larry Holmes would be the police. When every time Michael Charles arrested, Larry Holmes become the police.
Because
hang on a sec. One at a time. Go ahead.
Now, the thing about Ezra Charles gave more respect to his opponents as a champion than Larry Holmes did. He fought Jersey Joe Walcott 4 times. He fought him 3 times, or he fought him I think it was 3 or 4 times. But by the last fight, he didn't need to give that fight, and that fight wouldn't have happened nowadays. But that's the fight he got knocked out in. Imagine if Larry Holmes had been doing that. Somebody he beat by unanimous decision. Gave him 3 more fights.
Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't do it. I mean, that's what Blood was just saying, man. And plus, he didn't want to fight these young guys. He avoided all of them, man. You know, that's why I kind of I don't want to say it, but I didn't give Holmes his due respect at that time, man. You know, he was the greatest heavyweight in the world, but yeah, he was waiting. He was following that Marciano record. He was trying to get that 50-0, and a lot of resentment there. Larry was bitter. The media was bitter towards Larry. So it was a crazy time.
He took an easy route, man. Larry Holmes took an easy route in the early 80s. Early to mid 80s. He took a chance when he fought Carl the Truth Williams. You saw what happened in that fight.
And what about a Ken Norton rematch? People don't really talk about that either.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that never happened. You know why that never happened? Because Ken Norton got starched by Ernie Shavers in 1 round.
Exactly.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's true. Still could have been a good rematch at some point. There was so many titles.
You know, Ken Norton was in the twilight of his career then anyway. And I mean, he had that war with Randall Tex Cobb.
Yeah.
And then that fight.
Not all careers line up. This is the kind of thing. I kind of forgot about that. I did know that, but thank you for reminding me.
And plus, they were saying Ken Norton was 35.
I lived through it. That's why, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just
trying. They were saying on TV that Norton was 35 and he was 38 too when he fought.
Yeah, for sure.
Jerry Cooney. He was 3 years older than what they were saying on TV.
Well, when you watch that Scott Ledoux fight, Norton didn't look good in the last 3 rounds of that fight. He looked like an old man. He was out on his feet. And that's when he fought Jerry Cooney. That's when he walked into the Lion's Den. And he asked about that fight now. He says, Jerry who?
He was old, man. He was old. He took a lot of shots, Norton. Norton didn't have the best chin in the world. He had a better chin than people give him credit for because the people who would knock him out were murderous punchers.
Oh, murderous.
Because he could take the shots of Larry Holmes and guys like that. So he had a better chin than what people want to say. It's just that when he fought somebody who had the big thudding punch, he had a problem with those type of guys, Norton. But by that time he fought Scott Ledoux, man, he was way past it. And Ledoux was nothing more than just a C-class club fighter who could upset. He'll upset a B-class fighter if you come on the wrong night. That type of guy, you know. Ledoux was never nothing special.
Oh no, he was an opponent. He always give you a rough and tough fight, man. He reminded me of Christian Hammer. Same
yeah, that's a good comparison. The stepping stone type of guy. For Scott Ledoux, you know. But that was a very interesting era, and a lot of those fighters too went down to cocaine because cocaine and then crack cocaine and all of that shit. That shit came real big in the 80s with them fighters. Even the nice Sugar Ray Leonard was doing a few lines of cocaine here and there, right? So
well, you know, I talked to Jerry Cooney on a panel once, and he admitted to me the way he celebrated his knockout of Ken Norton was with a line of coke and a shot of Irish whiskey. And he said he never stopped after that night. He said when he fought Larry Holmes, he was fucked up. He was addicted. And he said, you know, if he could redo his career, if he had to redo it, would be a totally different fight. Because you watched the fight, man. He was out jabbing Larry Holmes in a lot of that fight.
He was a good fighter, Jerry Cooney. He was a very good fighter. He knew how to set up his opponents. He'll set them up and stuff like that.
Well, he had that one punch. It was like a Deontay Wilder. It was almost like an Ernie Shavers. Ernie Shavers was a little more complete, but that one finisher, you know, that left hook from Jerry Cooney, break your ribs and then knock you out. That's just
and he'll set that left hook up too. He'll set him up to run into that left hook. He had a pretty good right hand too. He'll set them fighters up and they'll run into something. Some of the guys he beat up though, like Ron Lyle and them guys were way past.
Well past their prime. Terrible management. Well, that's because he should have been with Don King. I mean, they actually had a Mike Weaver and Jerry Cooney fight set up, and
I know, but they couldn't get that fight going. There was a lot of politics behind that stuff, and a lot of people was accusing Jerry Cooney of basically sitting out. You know what I'm saying? And they would keep him in the rankings. So a lot of the heavyweights didn't like Jerry Cooney. They thought he was getting a white man privilege. I'm just gonna be honest with you. You know?
No, for sure.
They thought he was getting a white man privilege. All those guys like Greg Page and them guys, they thought Jerry Cooney was getting a white man. Pinklin Thomas, all of Holmes should have fought Pinklin Thomas too. Greg Page, Pinklin Thomas.
Yeah.
There's so many
guys
he should have fought.
If he had gone through those guys like a bum of the month club, I would have had so much more respect for him. And dude, Larry Holmes, what did he have? He had about 25 defenses too, didn't he?
20,
I had
21 or 20 or 21.
The highest next
to the ring.
Yeah, I mean,
getting the WBC.
I probably saw 15 of them.
The IBF is 20.
Okay, 20 then.
Yeah, I mean, every other month, Larry Holmes would be defending against the European champions, Alfredo Evangelista. He fought
Oh my God.
Ali, and he fought Larry Holmes. It's like who?
Was it not his
Ozzy Akazo.
He was really good. He knocked him out with a jab, but that guy was pretty good as a cruiserweight, though. He was just like too small. He was a really small heavyweight. That was his problem.
Well, that's why that was the perfect time where cruiserweights started to be something. But yet, guys like Ozzy Akazo, he knew he had to make his money in the heavyweight division. He beat Jimmy Young twice, an old faded Jimmy Young. And then, Larry Holmes was the next logical step. And then I remember when he fought Mike Weaver, same thing. I think he got wasted really, really early. I mean, not Mike Weaver, Michael Dokes.
Dokes, yeah.
Who was so involved in that thing, so involved in that. The worst referee stoppage in the history of boxing has to be
Dokes Weaver won.
Yeah, Dokes Weaver won. Bro. Oh my God! A punch wasn't even landed. What was his name? I can see him in my head, and I have his name at the tip of my tongue because it was just after the Mancini Dooku Kim fight, and it was one punch too early or one punch too late, and all the referees were favoring one punch too early. There was
I don't know. I mean, if you guys watch the film, Mike Mattig and Jack Sharkey is a pretty terrible stoppage. It was just because he had cuts in his mouth. It was before mouth guards were regularly used.
Jack Sharkey, you taking us way back now to
Jack Sharkey stopped Mike Mattig in 12 rounds. I watched that fight recently. Mike Mattig was winning the fight from the footage that's available, and they just stopped it inexplicably because of cuts. It was before Ted Kid Lewis was the first to have a mouth guard, but that fight with Mattig and Sharkey was the fight that normalized having mouth guards, especially at heavyweight.
That's interesting. See, that's a different era. See, that era there, the fighters were even had to go through more rough extremes. The further
if you want to have a fan base, if you want to make money, you got to fight every week.
Oh yeah, the more they fought, the more barriers they had to go through. The further you take it back, they had to go through more barriers, man. Right? It was a more harsh environment. If you take it back to the 70s, it was more harsh. You take it back to the 40s, it was even worse.
Yeah,
right?
and a lot of people nowadays just say that they had no defense or anything. But Mike Mattig was using the shoulder roll in 1922 to beat Battling Siki.
Right, right. They were using those. They had to use the shoulder rolls and all of that stuff. See, a lot of people would like to say that the fighters back then were cab drivers, but the fighters back in them times, especially in the era you like. Go ahead, bro. What'd you say?
They didn't even have cabs back then. That was before.
They didn't even have no cabs, right? None of them was no cab drivers. Number one, they didn't have no fucking cabs because I looked that up, and none of them had those type of occupations. They were a lot of construction workers who would leave and go to the gym, and they would practice all day. That's all they would do. The fighters today, they spend their time on social media and all over the place doing all kind of celebrity stuff.
The time that they would have been spending would have been in the car getting to the next fight. Ike Williams beat Bobby McQuiller, who was undefeated, and I think in Pennsylvania, and then he just drove to Ohio and beat somebody else.
Yeah, man. Ike Williams was one hell of a fighter.
Fighters
from the 40s and 50s, they get overlooked. A lot of those fighters like Ike Williams and Carter and those guys, what's his name? Bo Jack, and those guys like that. I don't know much about those guys. I only know basic stuff, because I haven't dug into their history yet. But I will.
And Juan Zurita, he had over 100 fights.
Xavier, you were talking about stoppages there. I mean, it's interesting. I might be wrong on this. You guys might know. But the Phantom Punch up in Lewiston, Maine, with Cassius Clay Ali versus Liston, he got up from that shot, and then they stopped it. There was some controversy with the I think Jersey Joe was the ref, and then
Yep.
but I believe he got up, and then they stopped it after they engaged again, which I believe
because Nat Fleischer told Walcott they'd be down for 10 seconds.
The most bizarre stoppage in the history of the sport.
Yeah, definitely the most bizarre. It's because of Nat Fleischer. He was ringside, and he told Walcott that Liston had been down for 10 seconds. So
because people don't normally talk about the rest of the story, they just see Ali standing above Liston like that was the end of the fight. But no, Liston got up and he engaged, but then they stopped it, like Xavier said, which I find that to be the most bizarre stoppage in the history.
Yeah, they could have let that fight go on. There was a lot of controversy if the punch landed and all kinds of stuff. So we had to hear about that for the next 30 years.
30? People are still talking.
We're still hearing about it today, but, and not as, because people tend to, they don't look at history like we do. This kind of shit tends to get forgotten, so it's good y'all bring that up because, yes, he did get up. He did get up from the punch and it was stopped after he got up and they engaged again. I can remember it in my mind because
What is that? The Liston and Clay fight you're talking about?
Liston Clay too.
Ollie, that was the first fight.
My dad went to that fight.
To Liston versus Ali too.
Yeah, the rematch, man.
Yes.
I was too young. I was only about 8 years old or so. But he came back, bro. Did this, man? He went up there with his buddies. It was supposed to be at the Boston Garden, but they moved it because of threats. The Nation of Islam had put threats out on Liston, and Ali had, I guess, the Klansmen had threats on him. So they wouldn't let it be staged in Boston. Last minute, it was staged in Lewiston, Maine. And my dad went up there with some friends of his. I mean, he owned the bar. They were drinking all day, bro. What was that again, Matt? Well, anyway, man, he went up there, and the next day he came back. I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't really pay attention to it. But he was mad. He had gone to take a piss, and he missed the knockout. And it was like he said, never do that again, never go to a fight. But I mean, I'll never forget that as a kid, man. And my father, he didn't like Ali after that, bro. I was the Ali man, and he liked everybody else. He liked Frazier, you name it, man. He wanted people to shut Ali's mouth. He wanted Floyd Patterson, and I'm like, Dad, this is and that was like, because back then. The thing was, it was revolution, bro. That was the main word. If you had a good argument with anybody in authority, then you revolted against it. And Ali was he was my first catalyst, man. I rode with Ali, to the point where I actually had agreements, verbal arguments with my dad about it, especially about the Frazier Ali fight. But that one, man, I'll never forget the history on that, man. He came back mad. Went to the bathroom, pissed, never go spend money on that fight, on those boxers again, and But just one of my early boxing memories I wanted to drop in there about that fight.
Yes, sir, man. That was a controversial fight indeed. Also,
well, what it was too, bro? Jersey Joe Walcott, he was the referee, and that was his only time he refereed a fight.
Yeah.
And never again asked to.
And that was one of
he
those
looked very confused in there.
Heavyweight champions referee. That used to be commonplace.
He looked very confused in that fight, though.
Was refereed by a former champ.
Well, when that fight was actually stopped, I believe it was Herb Goldman, man. One of the writers said he told the timekeeper that this fight is over. He was on the ground for the 10 count.
Right.
And Walcott he wanted the fight to resume.
Imagine that going on today.
Walcott ended up getting a very big position anyway as a commissioner. So he ended up becoming some kind of big time guy, behind the scenes. So
they should have given that to Joe Louis too.
A lot of people, they say today, these former fighters, they should be referees. And I always say, well, go look at Jersey Joe Walcott when he refereed the Ali.
I don't know. I feel like that's just one bad example. Many good examples. Jack Dempsey used to referee fights.
He did. But the thing about it is, a fighter has a fighter's mentality. Maybe it's best for a referee to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, they're gonna look at
it best to bring it closer to what it used to be, but a referee would be best for the health of the fighter.
St. Cruising, bro. Always dropping them gems out there. Leotis Martin, he knocked Liston out cold, man. That was a shocking fight. I remember seeing that on. I didn't see it live, but as I get into boxing, you know, as I was reading records, Sonny Liston stopped by Leotis Martin. What the heck? You know what? A cool story.
It was an uppercut. Wasn't it an uppercut that did it with Leotis Martin? That hit Sonny Liston with a real big uppercut, right? If I can remember correctly.
I don't remember, but I do remember seeing Sonny laid out, taking that count.
By a guy he would have cleaned up if he was 10 years younger.
Well, you know, it's an interesting story too. You know, Sonny's stablemate, Mac Foster, he fought Jerry Quarry in Madison Square Garden, and Sonny bet his entire purse from that fight on Mac Foster. Mac Foster got beat, so he lost his $3,000, and he walked out of that fight with nothing, man. That was like hard luck, Sonny Liston.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't know he bet money on that fight. He bet his money on Mac Foster, man. Come on, bro.
Yeah. Well, that was
my God. Mac Foster wasn't bad, but my man, that dude didn't take training serious and shit. That's crazy right there, bro.
No, but Sonny Liston, he would have been a star today because he didn't do half of what these active boxers are doing today, man. You know, he tried to be he tried to stay out of it, but the cops wouldn't let him. You know,
but he would take policemen and dump them in dumpsters and shit like that.
Yeah,
He'd be in all kind of trouble, man. It'd be all over the internet, getting in trouble and shit. Sonny Liston.
That was later. After he won the title, and he was living in Philadelphia at the time. You know, he had his wife. He was pretty much staying out of trouble. But he went back there. He was expecting a hero's welcome, and there was nobody there waiting for him. And they said he turned even more. You know, he was turning around. His wife said he just became stone cold after that, man. He became real hard. And
he was already a criminal because he went to prison at a young age. So he was
his whole life, man. His family, his mother dropped him off. Reform school. He went and tried to find his mother. His mother didn't want anything to do with him. Sonny was he was always arrested. He was intimidating. He beat up cops. The cops flew him from one city to the next. I don't know if they could do that today.
He was another guy who was pretty crazy because it's the time that he was doing it. Like, who in the 1950s is going to beat up and 40s is going to beat up police officers that's a black guy, you know, and get away with it?
Miles Davis.
Still be alive.
Miles Davis and Sonny Liston.
There you go.
And Miles Davis, even though he was a jazz musician, he was a big boxing fan. He was friends with Johnny Bratton. That was one of his favorite.
I heard about it. Yeah, I know he was.
Song about him in the 70s.
Hey, if you ever watch a documentary about the Frazier-Liston fight, you know, they show the celebrities at ringside, and Miles Davis between 1969 and 1971, people didn't really see Miles Davis around.
No, he even came out for the Ali Frazier fight.
Yeah, he came out for the Ali Frazier fight, and if you catch him at ringside, it's only a quick glance of him. But you know, he made that public appearance.
Do you remember what year he stopped doing music? I know he did it for 5 years. He just retired.
Yeah, but between 68, because after he went electric and he put out Live Evil and a lot of those albums around that time, he just got fed up with jazz, and he said he painted his windows black. He didn't answer his door. He pulled the phone off the hook. And,
yeah. I've watched since high school. A lot of that stuff's sticky information for me.
Miles was the man, dude. I love Miles Davis. I can go on about Miles Davis. I never saw him play before, but he played in Newport. I lived near Newport. He played there a lot. I must have 20 Miles Davis on vinyl.
Have you ever heard him do straight ahead jazz in the 80s? I think he has one recording.
Yeah, he would get together his classic quartet. You know, he'd get together Tony Williams and Ron Carter and Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock, and he toured with them because Miles, he played all kind of music, man. He did that Cyndi Lauper song, Time After Time. Yeah. He did Michael Jackson tunes. You know, he played pop music, hard jazz. I mean, Miles was the man, and Miles loved his boxing. You listen to the Jack Johnson album. Miles dedicates the album to
yeah. And I liked Herbie Hancock too.
Herbie is awesome, man. Yeah, awesome fucking player. I've seen Herbie a couple of times.
Oh, that's nice, man.
And Herbie Hancock's involved with the modern guys like Kendrick Lamar. I think he's on To Pimp a Butterfly or associated with them at least. Like Herbie Hancock is like Miles in that way, working with modern people to influence the next generation.
Hey, that's good. That's always the good thing to do. That's what you want to do. I don't listen to the modern music though. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, man. I don't like it. You know, it's just I think they steal a lot of samples and they're lazy. They don't get in and use the instruments.
They need more musicians.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts too because whenever I listen to rap, I hear these people rapping and they're rapping in the rhythms of swing. They're doing triplets and swinging, and I'm just like, bruh.
All that stuff sounds the
same.
Too? This is the only era where the rap and the R&B and the pop all have the same beat, right? They're like that shit. You can't even tell what's the difference between the three of them.
Whenever I see somebody with like a real musician, like not just a sample of trombones or something, I have a lot of respect for them. It just kind of hurts every time I hear, especially when I hear really great compositions and they're just using not real musicians when they really could be, and it would enhance their music to a level they don't even realize.
Yeah, man. I don't know, man. When it comes to music, that's a different thing. You know, it's kind of like boxing. It's been watered down. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff has been watered down. And, you know, I don't want to be like a bitter old man because a lot of people will call me that and they'll say that about other guys too who are older, to say that we're a bitter old man and stuff. So I try to keep it open. I try to keep my mind open to the younger generation, but I'm just not digging the music. I don't know what it is. I try.
Look up Soweto Kinch. He's a British saxophone player. He raps and it's not like bullshit. Trust me.
What's his name?
Soweto Kinch. I'll put it in the private. I'll put it in the public chat if I.
Okay, I'll write him down and check him out. I love music now, but the newer stuff, I just don't like the newer stuff. It's just I don't know what it is. I know we're going.
There's a specific album of his that I'm gonna look on for.
I don't even listen to the radio.
Oh hell no! I don't listen to the radio. Is the worst place.
You know, if whatever I want to listen to, I go download it. I'll go buy it. You know,
yeah. I'm not gonna listen to the radio.
Bro, it's like YouTube knows what I like now, you know, because I play it so much. You know, I have a ad blocker in there, and so I'll just put it on, put the buds on. They'll put Miles Davis in there. Then they'll even put some Johnny Cash in there. Then they'll throw some fucking Earth, Wind, and Fire, some Santana. I mean, it's just good. It's like a jukebox, and I don't even have to change it. But because of, you know, the shit I listen to, they know what I dig.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I couldn't live without fucking music.
Bruce, let everybody know. Do you guys all remember the Village People? Do you remember the Sailor? That was Bruce.
Hey, Blood. I put it in the public chat. Trust me on that album and check it out.
Okay, let me.
Jaco Pastorius, somebody mentioned in there, bro. I saw Jaco 3 times. I saw him once, just Jaco on bass, and he had a drummer at this club in Providence, man. He was so fucking drunk. He died, I think, less than a year later. He was so wasted, and it was terrible. I think I walked out halfway through the show. He kept playing Happy Birthday to Me on there, and he was doing shots. But he was one of the all-time great electric bass players. Played with Weather Report, played with Miles. I mean, shit, he toured with Joni Mitchell, the Brecker Brothers, Herbie Hancock, played with everybody. Everybody wanted Jaco Pastorius. Anybody wanted to listen to some awesome funky bass? Sam and Dave, he played with them, man. Check out Jaco Pastorius, and God bless him.
Okay, let me check that out.
Anyway, man, Blood, I've been on there for I've been on there for 3 hours. This has been a pleasure. I think George dipped off a while ago. You know, it's just been real cool talking here, but I got to stretch the legs. I got to put something in the belly. I got to walk Bruno, man. We're definitely going to be doing this again. Blood, I'm going to hook you up with George so you get his number. You can talk to him and
yeah, man. Now give him my number, man, and tell him to give me a text, man, so I know who he is. Because I like to chop it up with him, man. Maybe he could give me some pointers of some documentaries since he worked with HBO before and some shit.
He loves boxing, bro. You know, I'm speaking for George now. He dipped off and he stayed on, but George, you know, I called him up. I texted him last night. I said, "You want to talk about the fights we just saw?" Absolutely. I was going to do it at 10. 10:30. Okay, no problem, brother. George loves boxing. He's new to this internet thing too, bro. And man, you know, he's very solid, good brother, man. Fistiana, thank you for coming in here. Tony Boswell, John McSmith, everybody else, man. And you know, man, and good time. Everybody, man, that came in here. We talked some old school boxing. We talked some new stuff. Mad chat up there, hanging with me. I was honored with Blood Boxing coming in. My brother G5, man, just sent him some dope magazines, bro. I hope he's digging on them. Yes, George, wherever you are, my brother, thank you so much for spicing up this joint. Xavier, bro, man, I like listening to you, man. Young guy, so much knowledge, man. Thank you for spicing it up over here. And out there, John McSmith, my brother, you know, Lance Meyer, St. Cruising, man. Oh, always a pleasure seeing you. Con Shonery, Thomas Jones in here, man. Tony Boswell. I like to acknowledge everybody. Peter Van Ox, Fistiano, of course, man. I always double acknowledge you, sister, because man, you know, you and I got some connections going on too. I got to get you up here. But anybody else who's here, anybody still here, man, thank you so much for coming.
Peace out,
anybody want to say something before I go out of here, man?
Bruce, I appreciate those.
Oh, G5 Game got the collection. G5 Game got the collection out on
the shout out to Bruce. He sent it to me. I told him, hey, you got, man, send me all of it. It's gonna go to good use. Trust me. Older stuff, you know, he sent me some classic stuff from the 90s and the 80s and stuff. I said, so shout out to Bruce, man. I appreciate it. You can keep sending me stuff because it's going to good use, man. Straight.
Yeah. Hey, ain't it interesting when you look through those magazines, man? I know it's interesting, man.
Awesome, bro. I'm so glad you got them, you know, because I sent out a couple of magazines to people, and I probably make mistakes when I write the numbers down there because it's you know, you get old, you forget.
Sending out magazines, man. I didn't know.
Bro, I've sent them out, and they just got delivered to a different address, and once you do that, you're fucked, man. You know, they can't go get them back, and anyway, bro, I resent them. I sent them to people. You know, people that ask me for them, no problem, bro. You know, if I got a few laying around here, I'm glad to get them in hands of people who can dig them. And you know, hey, man, well, you know, what goes around comes around. That's the way I look at it. I'm not looking for nothing. I'm enjoying spreading the word. Somebody spread it to me a long time ago, man. You know, boxing, that's our one love. Anybody else want to say anything before I get out of here, man?
Peace out to all y'all.
All love, man. Appreciate it, Bruce. Again, appreciate the magazines, man. You must, you know, like your young brother, man, because you got my numbers right. Because they made it. They hit the mark. So I appreciate it. X. Hey, I'm a sub to you. I like what you're doing with it. Man.
Oh yeah, I go out to graves. I take videos there. I've been to Mike Gibbons' grave, but I kind of fucked up the video, so I had to do that again.
Yeah, I'm a sub to you, X.
Yeah, I'm trying to go to Harry Gibbons' grave too. This is not too far from my hometown.
Yeah, I'm checking you. I like you. You're a young brother. You're younger than myself, and yeah. That's what I like to hear, man. I don't really dig our generation of boxing. They soft as hell. Just they don't bet on themselves. They don't believe in themselves.
No, that's why Gary Russell was talking about his injury.
You know, like you getting paid way more than some of these other fighters just for a C+ opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And like y'all got pushed in the face for free, coming all up.
Back then, they would have Hall of Fame fights and get paid maybe $50.
Yeah. Now you getting paid millions of dollars and you don't even want to fight, but you got punched in the face for free and before you made it pro. It's backwards. I don't
Once
get it.
Once you make $1 million, you shouldn't be broke. You should be able to invest in that.
But hey, I just went to school for business and I understand. I'm like, man, these dudes crazy. But that's all I got, man. I appreciate all you good brothers, man. Y'all have a great day. I'm about to sit down, kick back, probably watch Nigel Bean versus Jerry McKellen again. You know, it's one of my fights I love. I like to watch.
That's a good ass fight right there.
Man,
check out Mike Gibbons, Mike O'Dowd. It's on YouTube. Around middleweight championship, and it was kind of hard for me to see the difference between them. So if you guys do check it out, Mike O'Dowd has the longer trunks.
I'll write that down. Yeah, so you do your research. Appreciate you, Bruce. Man, you know, we'll get back up on the back end. I'll be going live soon. You already know. Got an open spot. Any brothers want to come through, because I do put out content. So yeah, we working. Peace out to everybody, man.
Peace to you, my brother. Hey, man. Bruce goes hanging in there with you, man. We're on here longer than we expected. The TOKER 2 is still it's shimmering clean over here. Like everybody out here, man. Enjoying some great boxing, man. I had my good friend Judge JAKOVIC up here, man. I had blood boxing. I had Xavier, the boxing nerd, man. I had Mad Chat. I had G5. Earlier, we had Electric Jet in here, man. We had 150. It was great boxing talk, man. I love it, man. I love you guys, man. Thank you so much for tuning into Bruce Goes. Do me a favor. Hit that like button. I don't know what it means. It means something, but that's all I ask of you, man. Peace to everybody out there, man.